Hello, good evening, nice people. It is, August 21st, 2024. I am Ryan Burns, the DB Cooper Sleuth, here with you this evening. We're just going to do a little Q&A or whatever, just hang out, just chat Cooper, as everybody says. Hello, nice people. I see we've got some good people here already. Brian from the great state of Texas, the Republic of Texas. We'll have to talk about that later. Remember the Alamo, right? But nobody remembers Goliad, right? Like, wasn't Goliad like 500 people massacred and the Alamo was like 280? Goliad gets no respect. Anyway, let's see. Hey, Nicole. Hello, Jay Weiss. Hello to Lionheart. Hello, Cypher from Portland. You don't have to lurk. You can say hello. Hello, it's Jude Morrow from Ireland. Yes, it's my favorite Irish author. He's better than James Joyce. It's Jude. It's Jude Morrow. Hello to Mrs. Poirot, or was it Mrs. Paro? Poro. I don't know how to say that name. Anyway, Mrs. Paro. And the UK is dialed in. Mini Pup. Hello. It's late over there, isn't it? These time zones are crazy. I know all about that. Ohio. Yes, California was a republic. I think for 25 days. That's right. I can do your voice too, Jude. All right, let's see. Okay, all right. Now that that's over, we'll get into it. Let's see. Here's the first question. Do you believe that DB Cooper had a ground man? And if so, how do you think that worked? Let's see. Well, gosh, I go back and forth on that. I don't know if he had a groundman or an accomplice on the ground at all. And the problem with that is that Cooper really had no idea where they were going to fly. I mean, he said to fly a certain direction, or he said to fly to Mexico. Well, he knew they were flying to Reno, I guess. But that was not his suggestion. Reno, people like to think about that Reno is special of some sort, that it has some connection to Cooper, but Reno was just an option that he was given to pick from. I believe Cooper suggested maybe Phoenix, I think, was the only place that he really suggested for a refueling stop. The Northwest offered LA, San Francisco, but he declined. He said those were too busy of airports. And they came back and he said, what about Phoenix? And they said, well, we'll get back to you on that. And they came back and they said, well, we can't make Phoenix either. They said, what about Reno? He was fine. Reno's fine. And of course, Cooper, in my opinion, never had any intention of going anywhere. So did down that way. So I don't think it really mattered to him, but he chose Reno. But the problem is, where would he, how would he know, how could he hook up with somebody on the ground, like to meet him on the ground in a location if he had no idea where he was? He may have assumed, like, I think we have a propensity in the Cooper community to maybe almost overestimate his capabilities. I mean, he may have been playing, 3D chess with them, but I've said this a million times, there was no need for him to do that. He could have told them, he could have specified an exact flight path to fly. That's what Rob Hetty did. That's what McCoy did. And that wouldn't have mattered, because it's not like they didn't know where the plane was. Unlike, I know there are some Cooper research. There's one Cooper researcher out there who thinks they didn't know where the plane was, but they knew where the plane was, and Cooper would have known that. The issue is he had to hide when he was going to jump. But him just saying fly, he said fly south. I mean, I assumed that he thought they were going to fly back over Portland, and they did. I guess, see, Victor 23 is a low altitude airway. Okay. And it's for low altitude traffic. And if Cooper made them fly at 10,000 feet, then I guess I don't think V-23 is the only one they could have flown, but I think that's the one they chose. There may have been another one. So I think the scenario for an accomplice is this: hey, drop me off at the airport, go hang out at the hotel. I have the hotel number. assuming Cooper's from out of town, which I think he probably had to have been, because think about the risk of doing this thing at your local airport, right? You run the serious risk of running into people that you know at the airport who goes, "Oh yeah, I saw Ryan there at the airport that day, and he was a paratrooper in the war, and looks like the sketch," right? So I don't think Cooper was from the Portland area. I think he may have had some dealings with that area before, but he wasn't from there. At least I don't think so. But you tell the ground guy, you say, "Hey, drop me off at the airport, go back to the hotel. I will make my way to a payphone somehow, or a phone. I'll figure out where I am, and then I'll call you, and you can come get me. I don't know when I'm going to land. I don't know where I'm going to land, but honestly, though, Cooper really seems like he's winging it, doesn't he? The more you look at him, he just seemed like a guy who was confident in his ability to figure it out. I think that a lot of military guys are like that. Or let's see. Okay. Do you believe the fake bomb proposition is solely based on the thoughts of those sympathetic to Cooper? I'll never budge on my belief he had live explosives. Well, I think the fake bomb belief is just a belief in it wasn't necessary to be real, right? What benefit was it to be real unless he was suicidal or homicidal, really? He could have literally just said, as other hijackers did, "I have a bomb in this briefcase," or "I have a bomb in this luggage here," or "I have a bomb in the cargo hold that I can detonate by whistling Dixie." Who knows? It didn't matter. They were going to give him what he wanted regardless. It was a calculation, right? They weren't going to risk a plane blowing up and whatever. Because again, skyjacking had a 0% success rate at that point. So I think they were very confident that they were going to get him. So I don't think it changes things. If you watch my most recent video, that guy a few months later did use live bombs, whoever that guy was. So, but Jude said Cooper, yeah, right. Cooper said he wasn't being taken alive, but is that hyperbole or is that the truth, right? Are there audio recordings of the air traffic control radio communications? Yes, there are audio recordings. There is a particular person who has one. If you listen to my podcasts, the opening, you'll hear that audio of Radachek saying, "We have 2 in the car. We have 1 remaining with the individual, and he's not letting her go." So there are audio recordings, and I've heard a few of them, and they are the property of one individual who we are trying to pry them from. Yes, the entire hijacking is audio recorded, and that would be nice to have that. But there is a person who, a lovely lady who owns these, and we are trying to get them because that would be pretty cool to actually hear all their voices. And what I'd really like to hear is, I'd like to hear the Radachek in them when they were cussing and stuff at the about the refueling situations. In my book, whenever it comes out, you can read all about that. The refueling was, it's funny, you'll if you watch Cooper documentaries and read Cooper books, they mention refueling a lot, don't they? I remember 10 years ago, before I was really, really crazy involved in this, always coming across refueling. And if you look at the Unsolved Mysteries episode, even Scott, 15 years later or whatever, he's saying, "I told them down there, if they're playing games like this, they need to get with it." So refueling comes up a lot. And when I did a real deep dive for the book on refueling, holy smokes. It's no wonder Cooper, listen to Radachek. He said they were on the edge of their seats during the refueling stuff because they could hear Cooper going nuts back there. In fact, there is a Tina interview that is out there that people don't really know about, that where she basically says that was when he was going to blow the plane up. He was screaming and going to get his briefcase, and he was really pissed about some of the refueling things that happened. And the flight crew were really pissed too, because they really thought there was some shenanigans going on. And I've asked the FBI guy, I've asked Detler and Furman, who were there that night. I said, were y'all doing anything like that? He said, absolutely not. So that was a genuine snafu on the grounds crew. One of the trucks got lost. It was just a mess. What voice do you imagine Cooper has? Any actors who you think of? I guess like maybe like Harrison Ford or something. Just a generic low toned male American, no accent having accent, I guess. Harrison Ford maybe just kind of low and kind of talk like this and just a very generic accent. Skip Hall, I guess the audio of Skip Hall. If you listen to Skip Hall's audio, that's a Cooper voice in my opinion, because he's from Kansas, no accent. I believe Kansas actually literally may have, if you look at some of the things that like Kansas is literally the no accent. That is the most generic American accent there is. So let's see. Okay. How certain are you that you have the correct Cooper sunglasses? I'm not that certain. I like the sunglasses I have, but the problem is with the Cooper sunglasses is there's two different descriptions really. And if you look, they change a little bit. If you look at, let me look and see. If you look at the Bing sketch there, he's got these kind of wraparound sunglasses that are kind of like Oakley's almost, right? But they shift when you come across composite B. When you get to the second sketch, let me pull up that. When we get to composite B, sorry folks, bad show, but we're just hanging out. I'm sorry, I'm trying to find all my sketches. Where in the world is my composite B? Okay, this will work. I'll just do this. So if you look at this, if you look here, you'll see the glasses. Well, even this doesn't have the glasses. I'm sorry, folks. I'm a mess here. I'm trying to get my stinking Comp B glasses. Where in the world is Comp B? There we go. Okay. If you look at Comp B's glasses, his glasses aren't so much Oakley's anymore. They're more like what you would call like well, I guess those are still kind of Oakley-ish, but they've got more of a kind of a rim on them. If you see that, they've got kind of more of like I don't know what you call those, not horn rims, but they're a little different. So the glasses did change, but I don't know if I've got Cooper's glasses or not. I mean, I like to think I do, but who knows? Okay. Do I think Cooper was ever married? Probably. I mean, this guy is in his 40s and he's a man. In that era, people got married. I believe that the rate of non-marriage now is way higher than it was then. I think people got married back then, and but I don't think if I had to guess, I wouldn't think he was married at the time. That would be my best guess. He was single at the time. Somebody says marriage probably drove him into this. Perhaps. All right, let's see. Are there any repair logs on the original 727? I understand it was scrapped in 1996 in Mississippi of all places. I was wondering if there were any repair logs for the plane. I was wondering, is it possible? I would possibly suggest that the stairs didn't retract immediately. I don't know what that means. I mean, the stairs absolutely retracted immediately. We've got the sled test that was on the same plane a few months later. Those stairs popped back pretty quickly. Let's see. There we go. Yeah. Were there any sand or gravel pits within the area that we now consider the drop zone? Could the money found at Tina Bar have come from another sand pit? Do the diatoms support a theory like this? I don't know how the diatoms would work out on the sand pit stuff, but yes, there absolutely was a sand pit near there. Now, I wish I had that image. Again, I'm unprepared to show you guys these, but yes, there is a image of there is out there. Let me try to find it. So Orchards, which is where the FBI updated their DZ in 2007, that's where they think it is. Let's see. That's where they think the current drop zone is, around Orchards, Hawkinson, that area. So let me show you this photograph here. Let me pull it up for you guys. There was a, where is it? Come on. I'm really sorry trying to find this for you guys. I wish I could. Oh, man. See, I'm always unprepared. I'm so sorry. This is bad pot. Here we go. Here we go. All right. Let me upload this to my little doohickey here. Okay. So this is a photograph of Orchards from September 1971. So we're bullseyeing on everything right here. Let's see. And this shows gravel pits. They were literally right under the flight path. The flight path goes right over Orchards. And we've got right there, you can see. This is the city of Orchards in 1971. Those huge sand and gravel pit operations. The sand at Tina Bar is not natural. It was brought in from elsewhere. Now, I believe the Fazios have said that they didn't get it from places like Orchards or wherever, but you know, that was a long time ago. Who knows, right? 1980 was a while back. But no, I like this theory a lot because I am kind of a believer, especially after I made my money bag back there, that Cooper may have lost that in the jump somehow. And I could see that thing, if he jumped, you know, it's going to go right down, right? Unlike Cooper opens his canopy, he's going to go as much as 2 miles away. But his money's going to drop like a rock and go right beneath the flight path. And that's actually where the FBI, one of their last searches was, look, we're going right underneath the flight path. We're going to try to find this guy's body. And they didn't find anything. So there's that. Okay. Hello, Darren Schaefer, our MC for CooperCon. Buy tickets now. Which of the following items would you like to own the most? His ticket, the tie, or his briefcase? Ooh. I would say, I guess the tie, because I think he owned that the longest. That was really his. The ticket would be pretty cool, but to actually own something that Cooper owned himself, that'd be cool. The briefcase, they believe, was bought for this operation. It was new. It was described as being new. So I would like the tie. The briefcase was just cheap vinyl leather sort of thing. Knockoff leather, I think is what Tina said. But it was new, and the FBI thought it was bought just for this operation. Okay. So the stairs definitely shut immediately after Cooper jumped. Absolutely. No doubt about it. The stairs 100% slam shut. Again, they took the aircraft in January of 72. So I guess 30-something days afterwards. This is a photograph of the same plane. This is in 467 US. That is a sled being shoved out. And you can see the sled has fallen maybe 15 feet or something. And the stairs have already slammed shut even. Okay, so they flew this. They replicated the exact speed, flap conditions. That sled, I believe, weighed 220 pounds. And so that is a human jumping off of it, or the human's weight. I mean, Cooper may have slid off of it for all we know. He may have been like McNally and just rolled off of it. I mean, we had this image of Cooper, Geronimoing off of it. Geronimo! But he may have just been scared and slid off of it for all we know. But no, they slammed shut. That's absolutely right. Okay. Why am I doing this? I know you've asked yourself that before. What else would I be doing? I don't know. That's why I'm doing it. The briefcase might have fingerprints on it, though. I guess, are we saying, like, if I found it now? I mean, I don't know what you're suggesting. Okay. His sunglasses would be cool as well. Okay. What were Cooper's preferred pizza toppings? Well, it's hard to say because Cooper could be a boring guy and just be pepperoni and cheese. But he's an adventurous sort. I bet McNally's, Mac, I don't know if Mac's watching, but I don't know what Mac's favorite pizza toppings is, but Mac kind of seems like a pineapple and ham kind of guy. Little fruity. That's what I would say. I'm not a coward. Darren Schaefer. Okay, let's see. Okay. Thoughts on Dan Greider's McCoy theory? I mean, hell, I made a whole video on it, right? Cooper was not McCoy. McCoy was not Cooper. They were not the same person, not even remotely. I mean, you've got to, that's not even worth discussing. The Rackstraw theory, the problem with Rackstraw is he's just too young. I mean, unless he's got some kind of Hollywood makeup going on, then he doesn't match. I mean, it is interesting. I mean, what's interesting about Rackstraw is that he is exactly what you would want in a copycat. He very similar to McCoy, a Green Beret type who was a chopper pilot as well, a criminal. He in 72, I think I believe he robbed a quarry of explosives and stole some guns in 72 from an armory. Rackstraw was a major criminal back then. And I mean, Rackstraw would be a great Cooper suspect if he was 15 years older and didn't have a lovely head of hair. We always make fun of that Rackstraw looked just like, Rackstraw had hair that would make anybody jealous. So it'd make Eric Ewes jealous. All right. In a Cooper died scenario, what research could possibly be done to identify, say, a loner that was never, ever reported missing? DNA only? Yeah, that's the only way we're going to, I believe someone else asked that, maybe somewhere else. What's going to solve this? It's got to be DNA. Unless somebody finds 100 and, my math's not good, $194,000 in 20s in Grandpa's attic or something, and Grandpa looks like Bing, the Bing sketch, and was in Air America or something. Something that ridiculous would have to happen for there to be a real consensus. I think that the only way this is ever definitively solved is with DNA, and even then, there's going to be doubters. I mean, someone who's married to a suspect, like a Greider to McCoy or somebody like that, or Rackstraw and Colbert, they're never going to admit that they're wrong because they would have done so already, I think. All right. So yeah, DNA is that's the only way. Okay. I heard about someone supposedly finding a white canopy in the search area not too long after the hijacking, and it was generally dismissed. No, there's no canopy found in the drop zone not long after the hijacking. There was a parachute found in 2008 called the Amboy, and they call it the Amboy chute. There was a parachute found in Amboy, but the problem with Amboy is that it's 10 miles away from the flight path. That's the same amount of mileage as the flight path from Eric Ewes's Tina Bar stuff. It's just not, I don't see that happening. And also, I believe that chute was identified as a cargo parachute, I believe. So it's not, it could be wrong, but I'm pretty sure it was too big to be Cooper's parachute anyway. But no, there was allegedly a white parachute spotted in the Columbia about a week later that was reported. And they said, well, that Cooper guy jumped out up near Ariel 30 miles from here. That can't be Cooper's. And they just dismissed it. So, Ollie, they aren't shut. The stairs don't have to, again, we're talking about they're not shutting. They're going kaboom. I mean, they're kaboom, and they come back down. They're not shutting. I mean, they're shutting. If they shut, it's instant, and then it goes back down. So they're not staying shut. They just smashed like a diving board or something, rebound. Why don't they test the chute that he cut for DNA? We're trying to do that currently. That is an effort we are trying to do. All right. Pineapple on ham, says Brad Legg. It's the best. I am a pineapple on ham guy myself. I think pineapple pizza is good. All right. How did Cooper vote in the 72 presidential election? As a Nixon guy. I mean, hell, damn near everybody voted for Nixon in 72, it seems. If anybody's young out there, look up the 1972 presidential election map. It'll pop your hat off like Charlie Chaplin. I think that I want to say Nixon won every single state except for Minnesota. I think that's right. So yeah, the odds are that Cooper was a Nixon guy, but truth is, Cooper may have been one of the 33% of eligible voters who don't vote in elections. So, okay. Jude says Rackstraw looked like Christ in 1971 with his flowing locks and beard. Yeah, it's great. Is there, Aaron, good question there. Our new law student, Aaron Corley. Is there a warrant for Cooper still in full force and effect? A warrant? Well, I don't know if there's a warrant because I don't know who would have a warrant on Cooper, but he is still eligible to be indicted. That's for sure. Okay. In your 302 search, have you found anything newish on the Elsinore Ghost? No. Those files have all been released so far. I don't know if there's anything else coming out about the Elsinore Ghost. How often do you play with little Coop, and do you have a little Tina? I don't have a little Tina. That's a good idea. I might do that. It's a good idea. Okay. Do I simulate the hijacking with little Cooper? No, I don't. That would be fun, though. Okay. What do I think Cooper's educational background was? If it was Vordahl, it would have been extensive. Yeah, I would say Vordahl was our most educated suspect for sure. Who is a real suspect. I'm sorry to the likes of Vincent Peterson. But Vincent Peterson, there is no universe where Vincent Peterson is DB Cooper, people. Like, there's just, I mean, I know that they say there are an infinite amount of universes out there. It would have to be infinity plus one for there to be a universe where Vincent Peterson was DB Cooper. There's no chance at all. Okay. Let's see. But what was his educational background? So the FBI thought that he had some college. They looked at his vocabulary, that the words he used, and they felt that he had some college, may have been a college graduate. I would say that I think God, I just don't know. People ask me all the time what my Cooper profile is, and I just don't know because I don't know what, he just baffles me. I know there have been some people who say, well, let's get the FBI or let's get psychologists to try and make a new profile on Cooper, but I don't think there's enough information out there that you could do that. It's too contradictory. Every time I think I know what this guy is, there's something else that makes me realize that it's not that guy. And I don't know what he was, honestly, but he wasn't stupid. I don't think he wasn't his attire does look middle management. I don't think he was the smartest guy in the room, but I don't think he was the dumbest guy. I think he was smarter than, I think he was a little smarter than average because he certainly possessed some sort of enough divergent thinking to do this thing, right? Okay. Did men ever walk on the moon, Darren? You know the answer to that. Yes, of course. Ollie says, I guess he landed in the middle of the river, tangled in his chute, and drowned. The end. No, he did not. I guess he could have, but the problem again with Cooper landing in the river is the river where they crossed is about maybe a half mile wide and they're going 3 miles a minute. So that would be quite the bullseye I believe they're only over the river for 10 seconds in that scenario, right? And for him to land in the river, I just don't buy that. I think Portland was up ahead. The pilots themselves said that they weren't yet to Portland. And people have to understand what we're talking about here. From 10,000, the pilots are 10,000 feet. Okay. Everything's relative. So if they're at 10,000 feet, when they say we weren't to Portland proper yet, the only way that they know where they are as far as Portland goes is what they can see, which is the glob of lights. So they're saying we weren't yet to the glob of lights yet, basically. They said they were in the vicinity of the suburbs of Portland, which to me is the little globs of light they're going to see, which are orchards, woodland, battleground. Vancouver, no, because Vancouver and Portland are the same glob of lights, basically. That's the way it's been explained to me by someone who flew that route all the time in 1971. Yeah. So no, the river is not. again, we have our best minds have tried to put Cooper in the river, and nobody has. I don't think they've successfully done that. Okay. Okay, he says McGovern won Massachusetts and D.C. He came close in Minnesota. Then I must be thinking of Mondale. Mondale won Minnesota, didn't he? Because Reagan won every state except for D.C. and Minnesota. So okay, I got that backwards. I got Reagan and Nixon confused. All right. Jude says, was there a metallurgy college degree back then? Yeah, I forget what the degree that Vordahl had. It was like natural science or something like that. I don't know if there was a metallurgy. There had to be a metallurgy degree because, in fact, ICS had degrees in metallurgy as part of their curriculum, which we thought was kind of funny when I think Chris Brower found that ICS, which is a match. So Cooper had an ICS, International Correspondence School matchbook with him. One of his matchbooks was from ICS, which again, that means nothing because these ICS matchbooks were like, for people who are old enough, these are like the AOL. It's like the American online CDs. Remember, here's 1,000 hours free. ICS matchbooks were everywhere, so it doesn't mean anything. But there was an ICS metallurgy degree. And remember, ICS was like, think about like the University of Phoenix. It's an online school at the time, not online, but it was correspondence school. Okay. Does Bill Mitchell have a favorite suspect? No. I'll say this. He felt that, I remember we talked to him. He was there when we debuted Vordahl. And Bill came up to me afterwards and said, I like that. I like the presentation. He liked that Bill was an engineer himself for Boeing of some sort. And he said that of all the suspects, like that's the vibe he got. Because, most all suspects we have in Cooper are badasses, Rackstraw, Braden, and these sorts, Gossett, these Army kind of guys, skydivers. And, Bill always said this was a geeky old guy, just somebody you wouldn't think would do this. And he remembers thinking that back then, because he remembers that's not a recent development for Bill, because he remembers being shown photos of suspects right after the hijacking who were in skydiving clothes or pictures of skydiving groups. Do you recognize these guys? Smoke jumpers. And he was just like, he wasn't one of these guys, is what Bill remembered. Just didn't strike him as one of these guys. So he said he liked Vordahl. I mean, as far as like just the vibe of Vordahl, he said, I like that this guy was an engineer sort of guy, or a a nerd. So, but it's not an endorsement of Vordahl. It's just he liked the vibe of Vordahl. Okay. How wet and frozen was the ground where he landed? He would have been covered in mud. It would not have been frozen. It was not freezing. It was 44 degrees when he jumped out. It would have been wet. It was light rain showers at the time. I believe a big storm came later on. I think the next day, maybe there was a pretty heavy storm. Okay. Do I think Cooper hotwired a car? It was easy in 71. Well, yes. And the FBI looked into that. They sent out a thing saying to a lot of, basically an APB to all law enforcement in Southern Washington and Northern Oregon saying, hey, any stolen cars that night, let us know. And there actually was a car that was stolen, but it was stolen in Oregon, down south in Oregon. Okay. There was a car stolen, and it had been parked where they found it was near a small airport in Northern California. And inside there were straps that looked like parachute straps even that had been cut. And, but these were sent up to the FBI, and the FBI said that they weren't related. And so, but again, I believe this was, I believe it was that town down there, Rose something down there in Oregon. but Southern Oregon, so I don't think it was from the night. I don't think it was Cooper. So they did look for stolen cars, and there were none. But yeah, Cooper could have hotwired a car. In fact, that was McNally's plan. McNally, if he had not been concussed during his jump, his plan was to find a car and hotwire it and drive it and park it in his garage in Detroit. So, oh, Darren, you're funny. He's looking at my paintings behind me. He says, who would you rather have a beer with, John Lennon, Cooper, or Neil deGrasse Tyson? Ooh, I was going to say John Lennon, but Cooper. Yeah, because I can look at video of John Lennon and get an idea of who he was, obviously. And Neil deGrasse Tyson is all over the internet. I can watch Neil deGrasse Tyson anytime I want, but I can't see Cooper anytime I want, right? So definitely Cooper. Okay. Cooper, Himmelsbach badly exaggerated the jump conditions, didn't he? Yes. Why the sensationalist approach by the FBI? Okay, so a bit twofold. Yes, Himmelsbach exaggerated. He liked to, and I don't know if it's an exaggeration. I don't know if he really was doing this intentionally, but Himmelsbach loved to say that when Cooper jumped out, it was -7 degrees. People go, holy shit, -7. But that's Celsius, right? I mean, it was 22 degrees at the altitude Cooper jumped out, which is common. It's like people say, oh, you froze to death. No, skydivers jump out all the time at temperatures like that, even in shorts and flip-flops sometimes. You know, skydivers are crazy. You're only going to be in that, weather not too long, right? You're not going to, if you walked out your front door and it's 22 degrees, you're not going to freeze to death in 4 minutes if Cooper's in a parachute coming down. It's ridiculous. But why the sensationalist approach by the FBI? Well, having spoken to one of the original Norjack case agents, John Detler, he gave the answer to that. They were trying to discourage copycats. And I told him, I said, well, that didn't work, did it? He goes, nope. But they were trying to, it's almost like don't do drugs, kids. Don't do crime, or crime doesn't pay. If you do this, you'll die. So they like to, and I always just say it this, what is the FBI gonna say? Well, shit, I guess he got away. No, they're never gonna say that. So they're gonna say he died, and but privately, the FBI, I've said this many times, the only FBI agent that I know of who firmly believes Cooper died is Larry Carr. Even Himmelsbach himself, old McGruff, he said 50-50. So, that's better odds than Larry gave him. Is IMDb Cooper the worst documentary on our favorite hijacker? The answer is yes. Yes, the answer is yes. Absolutely. That is a farce. If you've not seen my video on DB Cooper expert reviews, I review that and I say, may God have mercy on their soul. And I mean it. May God, may Buddha, may the spaghetti monster have mercy on their soul. It's a disaster. Rodney Bonifield was 19 years old at the time. Okay. You would smoke a joint with Lennon, Darren. Yeah, I bet he would. Hey, Chad, what do the FBI's files say about the 2 men who claimed to see a parachute in the river? Nothing. I have tried to find that extensively. I have done crazy word searches trying to find that. That never was sent to the FBI because I don't think the Vancouver Police Department ever mentioned it to the FBI. Okay. Does Tina have a favorite suspect? I don't know. There is some indication that she liked the podcast. Tina Mucklow did apparently listen to Chris Williamson's podcast called, I forget what it was called, but it was part of Vanished maybe. But I believe the episodes were called Dark Horse, and they were about Ted Braden. And I believe that Tina at least listening to that, perhaps we know that she liked listening to that. So maybe she likes Braden, and maybe, I know the producers of the movie that she's working on, the only Cooper related person that they follow, I believe, is Drew Beeson, the author of the Ted Braden book. So now, if you're going to be skeptical, you could say, well, the movie they're making is a suspense action thriller. And if you're going to have a Cooper who is for an action thriller, then Ted Braden's your guy. I don't think someone like Fred Catalano or Milton Vordahl is that exciting of a person to be Cooper. So it could just be, if you're going to be skeptical, it could just be saying, well, they like Braden because he's exciting. And that makes for a better movie. Thank you, Nikki. Vordahl had a master's degree in metallurgy from Lehigh University there in Pennsylvania. Or Lehigh's in Pennsylvania, I think, isn't it? Okay. Cooper's main motive, the money or the grudge. Money, 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 money. He was a bank robber. Come on, people. This guy was robbing a bank, essentially. This hijacking is nothing. I mean, we make it more than it really is. This is a clever bank robbery. You know, McNally did this copycat hijacking. McNally was literally casing the route of a Brinks truck that he was going to rob when he heard the radio and was like, oh, that's a good idea. I mean, Cooper was a bank robber. Money. You know, we have many hijackers who hijacked planes for political reasons or for other reasons who did not demand money. So he demanded money. Interestingly enough, though, about that, people have said maybe he had a $200,000 problem. I don't think he had a $200,000 problem because he was willing to give away a bundle of money to Tina, at least a packet to Tina, which was $2,000. So he was willing to leave $2,000 with Tina. So I don't think his problem was a $200,000 problem. Okay. Okay. The odds that Lane Kiffin was DB Cooper. Maybe his dad who died recently. Maybe Monty Kiffin's about, could have been, but not Lane Kiffin. Okay. Packer Jack. Hey, Ryan. Hello, Packer. Packer is John Limbach, my partner in crime, so to speak, for the CooperCon. Buy your tickets now. dbcooperevents.com. Okay. Does Larry think he landed in the water if he died? Being at the bottom of a river or lake would be the only explanation for no body found. I mean, maybe. The problem with Cooper. Okay, so I've mentioned this before, but a kid went missing. A 16-year-old went missing in the Lake Merwin area. In November 71. It was actually 2 weeks before the hijacking. That's right. He went missing, and during one of the some people found his body exactly a year later. So in November 72, they found this 16-year-old's body, but it wasn't his body. They found like a femur and ribs and maybe like his wallet or something and his rifle. His bones there was no clothing. His bones had been scattered to the winds. So think about this, folks. For people who go outdoors, go walking in the woods. How often do you see not a dead body, but how often do you see a carcass of anything in the woods? Very rarely. And you know there's animals dying in the woods all the time, but you don't see the carcasses because they just get devoured, and humans are no different. So Cooper would have been nothing within a year. The problem is Cooper jumped with, that money bag and that parachute. Those things, where'd all that go? And how do you explain the Tina Bar money if Cooper died and plowed into the ground, cratered into the ground somewhere near Battleground or something, So I mean, landing in the river is one way to get rid of, but I just don't think they were too far away from the river when he jumped. It's my opinion. Speaking of Mac, what is the chance of having him on DB Cooper Sleuth? I think that's a good chance. I think Mac would love to come on here. I think I will definitely ask him. Nice Packer. Said, why did Cooper forget to write "ol" in front of Miss on the hijack note? Hardy har har. For those that don't know, I'm an Ole Miss guy. I went to Ole Miss. That's University of Mississippi. Okay. Yes, Jude says serial killers crudely toss their victims into forests with extensive search parties with dogs and never found until the killers gave up where those locations were. A body not being found isn't absurd. It's not at all. In fact, well, in the area where they thought Cooper jumped originally, not absurd at all, but where we think he jumped now, a lot of development since then, lots. I just think something would have been found by them. Any word on streaming for CooperCon? 100%. There will be streaming for CooperCon. It'll be a nice feed. We're going to have multiple camera angles, going on. It won't be amateurish or anything at all. Absolutely. We're working on that as we speak, essentially, it's as they say. Okay. Good NCAA football knowledge, Ryan. Well, I'm a Southerner. Of course I know college football. That's what we do. Why is Eric so in the weeds with Peterson as a suspect? It's his suspect. People have an affinity for their suspects, especially when you broadcast it as much as Eric did. I think that was Eric's a friend, but I think that was a hideous thing to do to Vincent Peterson. I believe one of his videos some news site that picked up his Vince Peterson press conference might have 2 million views at this point. It's just, so when you're that exposed, you're basically married to a suspect when you do that. Same as Colbert. He's on Netflix and God knows every other documentary pumping out Rackstraw stuff. Dan Greider's got documentaries with hundreds of thousands of views on McCoy. I think they call it the sunken cost fallacy. And I think that's where Eric is on Peterson. I could be wrong, but I think Eric took Vordahl bet poorly, because I do think if you're going to pick a Cooper suspect on the tie particles alone, Vordahl is an infinitely better suspect than Vincent Peterson. Ask Eric what it is. Well, he's tall, and we know he went to Seattle one time. How does that make you a Cooper suspect? How does that make you bizarre? No, Peterson is bad. Thoughts on the Let Me Know Cooper documentary? Let Me Know's great. Or Lemino. I think it's Let Me Know, like Let Me Know. It's probably the best produced DB Cooper YouTube video out there for sure. But it's basically a recanting. It's a retelling of the Wikipedia article, the bad Wikipedia article as well. Before I got a hold of it, it was the Wikipedia that was written before I got my claws into it and rewrote it. So that was what I would say. Okay. But no, it's good. It's a boilerplate DB Cooper documentary. It goes to William J. Smith and Dwayne Weber and those types. It's Barb Dayton. It's the usual suspects type. I call that a Wikipedia YouTube show. Okay, Chad. You said about the 2 guys who found the parachute. Yeah, I talked about that. The 2 guys who saw the parachute in the river, they contacted the Vancouver Police Department. Vancouver Police Department laughed at him, said, hey, the parajacker was 30 miles away from here. All right. Okay. Let's see. Let me see. Okay. Amy says, she asks about all the ways it could have been possible to spend the money. She says her thought is that he may have taken it to the east where people weren't looking for it. I don't think anybody was looking for it there weren't that, for one thing, there weren't that many lists distributed. I have a count somewhere of the number of, it's in the, I mean, everything. Again, the FBI, they documented when they went to take a pee break, they documented it. So there is somewhere in the files I've seen where the number of packets of serial numbers that they ordered to distribute to banks and things, I mean, it wasn't that many. So it was actually kind of cool to hold an original. When I went to Himmelsbach's grandson's house, there was an original there. That was kind of cool. But again, go check. I mean, anybody who's ever checked Cooper 20s on the serial numbers that are on my website, norjack.org, that's tedious business, boy. Those aren't in sequence. They're not, it's not like alphabet, they're not in numerical order. So it is a pain in the nuts to look for those. So I think Cooper could have spent the money. As we've said, they did not start documenting destroyed currency until, I believe, 1990. The serial numbers on money that they were pulling from circulation. And we know from the FBI files that a $20 bill in 1971 had a 2.5-year life expectancy because currency was used more than it is now back then. So they wore out quicker. So could have been spent, could have been taken to Vietnam or Peru or wherever. But on the money, I don't know. I just don't know what to think, because I really think he could have lost the money, because I just do not trust that contraption back there. Making one myself, it's just like, ugh. Now, but paracord is very strong. So I don't know. But no, I think it could have been spent. I think people who say that it was never spent, you can't say that. This is just not, Okay. What are your thoughts on solving this case? Do you think it's even possible? Yes, it's possible. I think that if you had I am not to toot my own horn here, but I am pretty good on, like, I know Dave Feudman is too. Both of him and I are really good at ancestry.com and making family trees and that sort of stuff. And if you gave me kind of like the Golden State Killer, they plugged his DNA into 23andMe or one of those sites, and they found like a third cousin or something. If you gave me DB Cooper's third cousin, I bet I could have DB Cooper in an afternoon, or someone who I'd really think so. Now, again, a third cousin, there's hundreds of relatives to third cousins, but I think I could sort through. I would look for, you just have to filter it. You look for relatives who were a certain age, male, certain age. And usually on ancestry.com, you can see if they were in the military. I can look them up on fold3.com and look at their military record. I could find, and then you can find their yearbook photos on Ancestry. And does he have a pouty lip and a small nose? I think I could have Cooper. So yeah, that's how it's going to be solved by DNA alone. Again, unless somebody finds, a bag full of money in there, or the original ransom note in Papaw's, copy of Moby Dick or something, right? So Pat Bolin says, why hasn't the case been solved? Well, no DNA. That's what I would say. No DNA. And again, Cooper is lucky. Cooper got the benefit of being first. Now, technically, Paul Sini was first, but I have a theory that what's interesting about it is that John Detler and Furman both told me that they did not think that Cooper was going to jump out of the plane that night. And that's baffling, because these guys were there that night and they're listening to everything. They're the FBI, and they just didn't think he was going to jump. And you would go, well, didn't he telegraph his intentions by asking for parachutes? And wouldn't Paul Sini 13 days earlier have kind of prepared them for this sort of thing? But I don't think so. I think that Sini's hijacking was so poorly executed, and Sini himself was a drunkard, that I think they just didn't take it seriously that it would be emulated by somebody so soon. So, and also Cooper said he wanted to go to Mexico City. And usually hijackers, weren't playing 3D chess. They wanted to leave the country. I forget the number, the exact number, but I believe, I don't know, of the 130 hijackings in the previous 5 years in America, 127 or something were, I think it was 127 or so were wanting travel somewhere. So the idea of a guy jumping out, they even thought that Cooper was going to make the crew jump and fly the plane himself. That was their thought before even thinking Cooper was going to jump out. That was their thought. Well, he's getting parachutes because he's going to make them jump and fly the plane somewhere. But it's very strange that they didn't think he was going to jump, though. But they didn't. So why wasn't the case solved? Because he was first, and he had a long head start. Okay. Good question, John. I like this question. This is one that I wonder about. Why didn't the FBI search around Battleground area if the flight crew stated they were closer to the Portland suburbs when the pressure bump happened? Good question. I think that the flight crew, I don't think they were heavily involved in creating the drop zone. For whatever reason, that was Paul Soderlund and Jim Hancock, who was Alice Hancock's husband. They were the ones who came up with the drop zone. And they mistakenly conflated the oscillations, which is Cooper walking down the stairs at 8:11, with Cooper jumping, which would have been a few minutes later. We don't know how long, but a few minutes. They were discussing what the oscillations were when Cooper jumped, so they were still talking about it. So I don't think it was 5 minutes, but I don't think it was 1 minute. So that's generally why people think 8:13, 8:14. But that kind of leads me to discuss this question here from Mike, our paratrooper of the year, Mike Davis, 82nd Airborne. He's asking about a detailed timeline of the search for Cooper. Well, let me take a drink. Pardon me, folks. Talk amongst yourselves. Okay. Mystery bag. I think Cooper may have had a canteen in his mystery bag. Very essential to have water. Stay hydrated. Especially all them cigarettes you're smoking. Okay. So the search. He wanted a timeline of the search. Well, the first person to go searching for DB Cooper was Ralph Himmelsbach himself. Ralph Himmelsbach owned not a Cessna, I don't know what kind of plane it was, sort of like a Cessna. And Himmelsbach had flown P-51 Mustangs. He was a fighter pilot in World War II, which is pretty cool, fighting the Hun over Germany. But Himmelsbach got in his plane that morning. I don't think he slept at all. And at first light, he got in his plane and he flew the flight path, essentially, looking for a canopy hung up in a tree. Didn't spot anything. Then it took them, they got the flight path map in the next day from the Air Force, from Sage Radar, from the Air Force. And that kind of gave them an idea of where the drop zone was pretty quickly, where they thought it was. And so 2 days later, November 26th, I guess I'll start this way because it's kind of convoluted. I'll start with the air search, like what they did in the air. So we have Himmelsbach flying over the drop zone the November 25th on Thanksgiving morning. Didn't see anything. The next day, they have the Army sends 2 of their Kiowa helicopters from Fort Lewis to go through the drop zone. Also a chopper from Weyerhaeuser. I think that's how you say that. Weyerhaeuser. I think it's Weyerhaeuser maybe. A chopper from Weyerhaeuser Timber Company flew over the drop zone on loan. And Bonneville Power Administration also loaned a helicopter. What's funny is that the Army helicopters only flew for about 2 hours until they sent a call down to Tom Manning, who was the FBI agent in charge of the search. Earl Milne, the special agent in charge of Seattle, had learned how that the Army wasn't doing this for free. The Army wanted money. The Pentagon was charging the FBI $250 an hour per chopper to do this. And that was going to add up to $2,000 a day, which is $16,000 today's money. And the FBI under Hoover were notoriously cheap. And they pulled the plug right quickly. They immediately were like, tell those to fly back to Fort Lewis. Thank them for their service. Beat it. So the Army helicopters flew back because they were too expensive. And let's see. Okay. Where else? I'm thinking. But those aerial searches, they didn't turn up anything. There's a bunch of false leads. I know one time they spotted near Lake Merwin a white canopy-ish thing out there, and they sent that when the helicopter came lower to see what it was, four kids came out from under it with fishing poles. It was raining. It was raining a little bit, and these kids had opened a tarp and got under it to hide themselves from the rain. So that's what that was. I know that south of Portland, they spotted a white, what they thought was a canopy in a field. They radioed down to a local law enforcement, drove over there. It was a sheet, not Eric's bed sheet, but it was a bed sheet that had blown off of a clothesline. False lead. Okay. So they didn't really spot anything, the aerial searches. As far as the ground searches, there were no boots on the ground, as they say, for 35 hours. And the first boots on the ground were essentially it was Cowlitz County and Clark County Sheriff's deputies with, I believe, about a dozen FBI agents. And they spent the next several days going door to door. They weren't really searching in the woods that much. They were going door to door, canvassing, looking for information. Is anything missing? Is your car stolen? Is something stolen from a shed? Do you remember anything fishy about that night? These are the questions that turned up the people who were like, yeah, there was a plane flying overhead. There was a mystery small plane was flying overhead. That's where those leads came from, was this initial canvassing on the 26th of November. On the 27th, 28th, 29th, they walked through the woods a little bit. Too much brush, it was just too much. And what's interesting about that, this is November. There shouldn't be that much foliage, but it just shows you how dense that area was. Of course, we now know that that's the wrong area. I believe about on the 27th, all the kids showed up, all the treasure hunters, the drop zone. They had to basically, it was a problem. There was so many cars coming to look. I know Steve Hart talks about this. He may have been one of them, one of our group members, that there were so many of these treasure hunters looking, chasing after the money because they thought he had maybe dropped it or died or something, right? And that law enforcement had to basically take a couple of days to reroute, to close off roads and reroute traffic and things like that, just to get rid of these treasure hunters. So that was a big problem. I know that the Cowlitz County Sheriff's Department had a jet boat that they used to patrol Lake Merwin for law enforcement reasons, and they rode around the shore of Lake Merwin looking for things. I believe the only thing they spotted was like a piece of styrofoam that was from a cooler. They thought it could have been something. Nothing. Let's see. On November 30th, I think, local law enforcement gave up. They said, this is too, we got to have other things to do. This guy's long gone. If he's probably gone by now, or he's dead, right? He's not wounded going, help. Either he's dead or he escaped. So you don't need us to find a dead body. You can find that yourself, FBI. We have things to do. So they went back to work. The FBI under Manning stayed around for a few more days. I believe Detler was, my guy John Detler may have been there too, sent down from Seattle. But they gave up on December 3rd. Okay. Then the Army search began, I believe, like March 20th, 21st of 72. The Army loaned out 300 soldiers, active duty soldiers, which is a no-no. Okay. If you know anything about constitutional law, you cannot have active military in the, doing military things or assisting in law enforcement, especially. It's called posse comitatus. You cannot have, basically, active military cannot be used within the borders of the U.S. for law enforcement purposes. So the way they got around this was they put out a press release saying that, well, members of the 3rd Cavalry are going to be doing adventure training. So they did adventure training for about a month in the drop zone. The only adventure they had, I've spoken to one of these guys from my book, the only adventure they had was getting like trench foot from all the wet boots they had to, they had these wet boots, and it was a really miserable experience. Particularly miserable when they found the body of 18-year-old Barbara Ann Derry on, March 29th or so. They find Barbara Ann Derry's body at the bottom of a silo, and they didn't even find it. In fact, the Army had been through that area before during their search, and they missed it. They didn't see it. 2 sisters who were bottle hunting. I guess people looked for old bottles or something. But they were bottle hunting by the grist mill near the Lewis River, and they found her body. She was an 18-year-old college student from Clark County Community College, I think. And she was killed by Warren Forrest, who was a serial killer at the time. I believe Warren Forrest may have killed 5 or 6 girls around that area in Clark County over maybe even like a 5 or 10 year period. I think he spaced them out, but they're pretty sure that he never admitted to killing her, but almost certainly he did. Okay, so they found her body, and that demoralized everybody. So they went home. The soldiers had R&R. They drove back to Fort Lewis up near Seattle for a few days. And then they came back, and eventually they ended that on, I think, April 17th or whatever. So they found nothing, of course. Now, remember, folks, they're looking in the wrong place. That's the important thing. I know Eric Eulis likes to complain about, well, they found nothing in the FBI drop zone. Well, no shit, because they were looking in the wrong place. Of course, they're not going to find anything. And maybe if they had been looking in orchards or battleground area, then maybe they would have found something. Or maybe if they had canvassed in orchards, then maybe they would have come across a gas station worker who said, oh, yeah, I remember there was a guy who came in and used our phone that night to call somebody, whatever, a business-looking man in a suit. He said his car broke down, and it was kind of weird, but he said he had to use the phone, and I let him use the phone in the back. Well, they're not going to get that story if they're not canvassing in orchards, right? So they found nothing. They were pretty upset. They started to wonder, is the flight path wrong? Or is there something wrong with the flight path? Can we get it more narrow? So the Air Force ran the flight path calculations from a computer, okay, not somebody stupid. A computer spit out these calculations that basically said that, I believe they narrowed it to a 1/4 mile corridor. And so the final thing they did with the FBI as far as searching went, in March of 73, they did all this stuff in March 72 to March 73. Manning, Tom Manning, gets a crew together of 15, 20 agents, and they spend about 2 weeks pretty much walking arm in arm directly beneath the flight path. I forget there's a term that they use where you do grid searches. It's how they found the Titanic. It's like mowing the lawn, essentially. You just go and they did this under the flight path. They said, hey, maybe he plummeted straight down, and they found nothing. And finally, Manning on maybe March, it wasn't April, maybe March 30th, March 29th, Manning writes this 302 that's really cool. And he basically says, there is no indication that the hijacker's canopy failed to open, which is as close as you'll get to the FBI, a statement within the FBI file saying, yeah, this guy lived, or we think he lived. So there, Mike, I hope that's a good answer to your question there. Okay. Ryan, a few folks around me have suspected that the skyjack was mocked by the FBI to prepare for such an event in the future. Do you think that's possible? No. I don't think so. I mean, they don't play games like that. The FBI, they've got other things to do. And again, listen, hijackings were a dime a dozen back then. As I've said, there were 130 of these in between 72 and 68. Okay, these were literally happened every other week or sometimes twice a week, sometimes twice back-to-back days. In fact, there were 2 Cooper copycats back-to-back days at the same airport. One guy was on both of these planes. It's a great story. I have it in my book. This guy was like, what the hell? He was on back-to-back Cooper copycat hijackings, back-to-back days. So I don't think they did this. Who was the suspect that was photographed wearing an early wingsuit? Wasn't it? It was either Peter. You're either thinking of maybe Sheridan. I think Sheridan Peterson may have done some wingsuit stuff, or possibly Ted Mayfield. Not sure. Natalie says, "Do you think the real DB Cooper ever told anyone who he truly was?" No, I don't think so. I think the best way to keep a secret is tell nobody. And I don't think he did. Or if he did, it was a spouse or somebody who respected him enough to keep their mouth shut after he died. Or maybe they died first. Maybe he killed the person he told. Who knows? Okay. Let's see. The pilot said he manually flew the plane. It could have flown way off the flight path. No, it could not have flown off the flight path because it was radar tracked. I'm sorry. Okay, I'll breathe a little bit here. There aren't many things we know for sure about the Cooper case. I have enough faith in our radar to know that the flight path's correct. Let me explain this to people about the flight path, okay? Sage radar, which became NORAD, missile defense. Okay, this is the height of the Cold War. Okay, this thing cost more than the Manhattan Project cost to make. Okay, they would not let you work on Sage radar. We talked to the former deputy director of NORAD. He was in the Facebook group for a while. He said they wouldn't let people even remotely near Sage radar unless they had a year of training, a year in the military training for this. These people were pros. Okay. So back then, if a aircraft squawked, because airplanes have transponder codes that they can beam out or receive. I'm not sure how radar works really well. My brain, I don't really know radar stuff. But if a aircraft squawked 3100, which was the transponder code for hijack, then the Sage radar automatically turned on to that plane's location and automatically recorded their location every 5 seconds, pinging them 5 seconds, ping, their location, recorded them on a hard drive where they were every 5 seconds. Okay, any hijacked airplane, because that was a bogey, right? We're talking about bogeys. They didn't know. Maybe the Soviets hijacked a plane and were going to crash it into a building or something. They don't know. So any hijacked aircraft was automatically tracked and their location recorded by a computer, by the most sophisticated radar on the planet at the time, every 5 seconds, plotted on a computer map. Okay, that's how the flight path map got to the FBI so quickly, because it was literally a computer printout. Okay. Eric Ewis has this theory that they're tracking the chase planes or something. I mean, like, you really telling me that these people don't know? And again, literally it was impossible to track the chase planes because they had different transponders, so they didn't get shot down by their own radar. I mean, it's just preposterous. We know where the plane was all the way from Seattle to Reno within a quarter mile. Okay, they did not, and the pilot said he manually flew. I believe that's actually maybe a bit of a fib. I want to say they were actually on autopilot. They may have been holding the yoke, I think, but I believe they were on autopilot. I think that might be a post-hijacking embellishment from Bill Radicek. I love Bill Radicek, but he gets some details wrong the older he's gotten, which is understandable. And I think that's a detail that's wrong. I'm pretty sure they were on autopilot at the time. Okay. Yes. Thank you, Packer. Ralph Hemmelsbach flew a Beechcraft Bonanza. There. Thank you. Okay. All right. Okay. Let me see these questions. Okay, if Cooper lost the bundle of money when he jumped, where would be a projecting landing for it? Well, like I said, I think he jumped maybe Brush Prairie area, Brush Prairie to Orchards, perhaps, maybe at Orchards. So it would have gone right down, and that's actually how the FBI, when they enlisted the help of the SR-71 Blackbird, that was their belief was that Cooper threw out the dummy chute for whatever reason. He just tossed it out the back, and also they believed that he tossed his briefcase out the back because he had no use for it. And those things would go right down. And so, because they knew the flight path very well, they enlisted the SR-71 to. I believe the SR-71 could like photograph a huge area. Well, they were like, "Look, we just need you to photograph a quarter-mile area for like 40 or 50 miles. And they said, yeah, we can do that. And they were going to do that. They did it. They flew 5 missions, training missions. And I'm not certain, but that may be the only SR-71 real world missions that have been in American airspace that have been actually declassified or talked about. But they did training missions on the SR-71 Blackbird looking on the flight path. But all 5 times they dealt with Pacific Northwest weather, and they were unable to take any photographs. So, and then I believe that SR-71 unit deployed to Vietnam after that, or somewhere. So they flew away. What's funny is that we have these memos going back and forth. We have this memo from somebody at the FBI office in Seattle to J. Edgar Hoover himself. It's in the files saying, hey, Mr. Director, the Air Force is saying we can use the SR-71. Now, remember, the Pentagon wanted $250 an hour for helicopters. So Hoover fires back, how much is this going to cost us? And the Air Force said, we'll do it for free. And of course, Hoover goes, free, you say? Okay. I don't know why I give Hoover this. Yeah, see, but Hoover was from the 30s and 40s. I mean, so he was an old guy. I could see Hoover going, yeah, see, you have that Blackbird fly over the flight path, see, for free. They'll do it for free. We'll take it. So that's what I think. Okay. Which panel did McCoy hide behind? Excuse me. The panels were searched, people. They tore the plane apart. In Reno that night, they took out the flooring of the plane. Okay, they removed all the floor paneling in the passenger cabin looking for the bomb. They removed the floor of both bathrooms in the back. They removed like the bathrooms, the toilets themselves and stuff, and reinstalled them. And they also checked the panels. There was paneling on the sides of the stairs area, and they removed those and checked them. They also checked the cargo hold. They went in the cargo. They searched all the passengers' luggage in the event that maybe Cooper had luggage down there, or Cooper had done something to put it in somebody's luggage or something. So all the passengers, remember, the passengers got off the plane without their luggage. They had carry-ons. So you see in the video of the passengers coming into the airport, they're all carrying briefcases and things, but no luggage. So their luggage, actually, that's why, excuse me, it's kind of sad. When they landed in Reno at 11 o'clock that night, the flight crew were there until about 2 a.m, giving FBI interviews. Then they came out around 2 a.m. and they briefly met with the media. And there's a video clip of Tina being a bit short. I wish I had it with me, but there's a clip of Tina being a bit short with somebody saying, we've already answered that or something. She's not pleased. She wants to go to sleep. So they go to a hotel. And the next day was actually what's called the game of the century, which was, I think it was Oklahoma. I think number 1 Nebraska was playing number 2 Oklahoma. And remember, they're on the West Coast. So this this game's being played on the East Coast or wherever, Central Time, wherever it was. And the pilots were like, hey, they're going to give us the day off. Surely we'll have the day off. So Radicek and Scott and Andy, they each bought like a 6-pack of Coors or something. And they were going to hang out in their hotel room and watch the football game. And right about time that they were going to crack their beers, they got a call and said, hey, get back on the plane, fly it to Seattle so we can have the passengers' luggage. And then we're going to fly you guys as passengers back to Minnesota, back to Minneapolis, where headquarters are. And we'll debrief you. So Radicek talks about how the hotel staff received all their beers. And they took off around. I want to say it's weird, very vortexy. I think they landed at like 11:01, 11:02 p.m. the night before, and I want to say they took off from Reno like 11:01 or 11:02 a.m. It's like almost like 12 hours on the nose when they landed when they took off. But they flew to Seattle, picked up Alice Hancock and Schaffner, who got off, and then they flew back to Minneapolis as passengers. Though they left the plane there because they wanted them back urgently. It's interesting. One of the stewardesses who flew that plane back to Minnesota, back to Northwest headquarters, she posted on Facebook a while back about how dirty the plane was. They thought it was soot from the engines. The whole back of the plane was filled with like black powder. And she thought it was like soot from the engines. Maybe the engines had soot or something with the stairs down. No, it was the fingerprint dust. The FBI did not clean up their mess in the aircraft when they were dusting for fingerprints. So all that black crap was fingerprint dust. So I don't know who cleaned that up, but probably some maintenance worker in Minnesota eventually had to clean up the FBI's mess. Okay. Let's see what else we got. Excuse me. Can I talk about Uncle LD? Okay. So LD Cooper, I used to really not like LD as a suspect, and I still don't like LD. But Uncle LD, we all call him Uncle LD. Yeah, Uncle LD is what we call him in the Vortex. We have these names for our suspects, like, we call Wolfgang Gossett Wolfie, or Petey is Peterson. Dwayne is obviously Dwayne Weber. LD Cooper is always Uncle LD. So Uncle LD was Florence Schaffner in 2011 said that his picture, which is this one here, I think I have it. Yeah. Florence Schaffner said that this photograph here was the closest photograph to Cooper that she had ever seen. So now what that means 40 years after the fact, I don't know, especially when Florence Schaffner said that she forgot what Cooper looked like by 1976, but suddenly she remembers in 20. But remember, Flo Schaffner also said that Jack Kofelt looked just like Cooper, which I should have Kofelt somewhere. I guess I don't have. Yeah, this guy here. So Schaffner also allegedly ID'd Kofelt as Cooper. So I don't think Kofelt and LD look too much alike, but she liked LD. Now, LD wasn't that interesting to me because LD to me didn't have the aviation experience that I think Cooper had. I think Cooper, surely he must have had some aviation experience. He was talking about flaps and things like this and about IFR clearances, whatnot. If you want to see what somebody who had no airplane experience looks like doing this, it's Paul Cini 13 days earlier. He picked a DC-8. He was going to jump out the side door, which would have, he didn't even think about flying with, that plane was pressurized, I think. And he was going to open the door and everybody gets sucked out. I mean, it was a nightmare. He didn't even think about that. So he was not, that's what a doofus looks like doing this. Cooper was no doofus. So LD was always discounted to me because he had no training. But, of course, his brother Dewey worked for Boeing at the time. So maybe he was a patsy for Dewey or whatever. Maybe it was Dewey's idea. But I didn't think much of LD until about 3 or 4 months ago, when there was a vault release about LD Cooper from 1971. I mean, that was the Charlie Chaplin hat flying off my head. I said, oh my God. I immediately messaged Marla Cooper. I said, hey, dude, look at this, you know. They looked into LD Cooper in 71, and some information came out that none of us were aware. Even Marla wasn't aware of it. So LD developed PTSD during the Korean War and was actually in a VA mental hospital in Portland as recent as October of 71. His wife killed herself in January 71, and that really put him in a spiral. And so he was in the VA psych ward as recently as October of 71. And that says a lot to me about where I kind of think, I mean, Cooper's not, again, as I've said a million times, pretend you're going to wake up tomorrow morning and go hijack a plane, like literally do this. It's preposterous for most of us. But LD clearly had some mental issues. And I think Cooper had some mental issues too. So LD became a lot better to me one night when I realized that the guy had just been, we have a mental ill guy who had just got out of the nut house, as you'd say. So yeah, not LD has moved up a lot. I don't know where LD is on my suspect matrix. I'll have to pull that up here and see where he is on my suspect matrix. I don't think he scored that high. Yeah, LD's got a 7. I think I've been through this before, but I'll do it again for you people. I have my matrix where I plug in these numbers and just try to be objective as I can for things that I think matter to Cooper: smoker, drinker, age, aviation history, pilot, tie particles, things like this. And right now, Skip Hall has 16 points. Ted Braden has 14. Orville Lyons has 13. A suspect whose name's not being released yet, out of respect, is 12. Another suspect whose name's not out there yet, out of respect for family, is 12. Lee Seller is 12. Jason Langset's a 10. Arthur Lavario, who Chris Cunningham's been looking into for a while, is a 9. Rackstraw's a 9. James Roman's a 9. Vordahl's a 9. Uncle LD's a 7. Barb Dayton's a 7. Sheridan Peterson's a 7. Melvin Wilson's a 7. Dwayne Weber 6. Walter Reck a 5. Gossett's 4. Surprisingly low for Gossett. I was surprised that my calculations spit him out so low. William J. Smith's 3. Kofeldt's 1. Vincent Peterson 0. And McCoy -2. So that's not me. That's just my math spitting it out. So, okay. Okay, let's go back. All right. What have I missed? LD looks like Elvis, not Cooper. He does. Okay. But his wife wasn't a grudge with the airplane. Okay, so let's talk about the grudge for a second, folks. You know, I've defended and prosecuted lots of criminals, and all of them have a grudge. If you ask them, what's your problem? Why'd you do this? Well, the world hates me, or whatever. Everybody's got a grudge. I think that I've said this before. I think it's possible that Cooper said that just because it sounded cool. Cooper's playing it cool. Cooper's playing this cool persona. And so it's a lot cooler to say, I don't have a grudge against your airline, miss. I just have a grudge. than to say, when she asks, why are you doing this? He goes, well, I'm just a thief. I want money, you bimbo. What are you, stupid? I mean, what's he going to say, right? He's going to be like, oh, well, it's not because I have a grudge against your airline, just because I have a grudge. That's cool, right? I mean, and Cooper in some ways is playing a part in a weird way. He does kind of seem to, he is almost playing this character in a way, more so than any other hijacker that I know of. He's playing the role, I think. Okay. Is Tina protecting Cooper's identity as she liked him that way? No. Tina, look, the idea that I love Bruce Smith is my Uncle Bruce, we call him. I love Bruce Smith until the day I die. But I think that a lot of that has been a bit overblown by Bruce, because Bruce was not working with the FBI files. All Bruce dealt with before it's almost like BC and AD. It's almost hard to compare a book written before the FBI files came out and one after. And if I was writing a book before the FBI files, I would say, well, yeah, Tina Mucklow doesn't give any interviews. Think about when Bruce, Tina didn't give a public interview on TV after 71 until 2016. And Bruce's book was already written. So here's this woman, a bit reclusive, isn't saying anything to the media or the reporters. So maybe she's hiding something. Maybe she didn't want to participate with the FBI, yada, yada, yada. But now that we have the FBI files, we can see Tina was very heavily involved with helping out. In fact, Tina is the only member of the crew who we have 2 full-length interviews with the FBI, because Tina called them herself a few days later and said, hey, I was a bit tired that evening. I forgot to tell you some things. Can we do another interview? I feel calmer now. My brain's clearer. So she gave them a second interview. So I don't think that she is hiding anything. No. She's helping them out. We got Tina Mucklow files in the FBI in the vaults from the 90s, from the 2000s. She was still actively helping them. So no, I don't think she's hiding anything. Let's see. How recently have those anonymous 12 pointers joined the list? Let's see. Who are they? The past year. And I haven't added a couple guys too. I need to add that guy I talked about last time, who was the one who was real belligerent with the FBI. The only guy I've seen, hell, there's 1,000 of these guys in the FBI files, and God knows how many I've come across, a couple hundred who we have their interviews, and he is the only one who is hostile to the FBI. His name's Roger Strom. He was a Boeing engineer who had been laid off at the time and had been in the VA mental hospital as well, and was driving a truck at the time and was not happy. And when the FBI confronted him, he refused to look at the sketch. They said he wouldn't even look at it. He just said, that's not me. And was very belligerent with them. Pretended to not know what even it was about. He goes, I don't know what this hijacking is about. I don't know. They said, you don't remember the hijacking from 2 years ago where the guy, he goes like, I don't know anything about that. I don't know what you're talking about. No idea. But then later in the interview, he randomly mentions something about the hijacker jumping out the stairs. And they're like, we didn't. In the FBI, they write to the Seattle office. They're saying, hey, he brought it up, not us. He claimed he didn't know about the hijacking. Then randomly brings up jumping, the hijacker jumping out the back. So suddenly he remembers halfway through this detail of a hijacking he has no memory of. Fishy. And he looks like the sketch too. I believe I have his photo too. He has what you want. Where's Roger Strom? This is a yearbook photo I found of him in college. There we go. Yeah, so younger there. But look at that lip, right? The Cooper lip. We talk about the pouty lower lip. Something was weird about Cooper's lower lip. And that guy's got a weird lower lip. He's got a little thin, beady little nose. like we want with Cooper. So yeah, Roger Strom, he's also described by the FBI. They said he was swarthy looking. So the FBI liked him. I don't know why he was dismissed as a suspect. I expect that his photo was shown to the flight crew or to the stewardesses at some point and they rejected him. But, you know, I am photo rejections. Well, this would have been a photo rejection in 73, which is they would still remember, I think. But a guy like Orville Lyons, for example, if Orville Lyons was rejected in 1984 for not looking like Cooper or for them saying that's not him, don't know if I believe that. Okay. I don't know if I would accept that as gospel, them saying that's not him in a photograph 10 years later. Okay. Are these 12 pointers alive? No. And one of the 12 pointers, I've told his story before. I don't want to go into it again, but in a past episode, one of those 12 pointers is the guy who has the single best Cooper. Like this guy is so good. His story is so well. I mean, his brother is around and it's a private thing, but they contacted me. And if this suspect, he's too young, he was in his 20s, early 20s, actually, well, mid 20s, maybe. He's 20. But if he was 15 years older, I would literally come on here and say, I think we've got DB Cooper. It's that good. It's almost as if, yeah, I mean, yeah, that's all I'll say. But I remember, I believe I texted Larry Carr all the details. He was like, oh my God. You know, and I said, yeah, I know. But this guy actually died a week after the hijacking from internal injuries. Unknown how he sustained these injuries, but he died a week later. So there's that too. Oh yeah, and this guy was in Portland. We know for a fact. We have the receipts. This guy was in Portland the night before the hijacking. It wasn't from the area. He was from Colorado. So yeah. Anyway, he's really good, but he's just too young, I think. Okay. Let's see. What else are we going to talk about? What is the latest with the hair follicle request? Are they supposed to get back to you? So the hair follicle request I made, you're supposed to get, so the way a FOIA works is you'll get a thing in the mail. When you file a FOIA, you'll get a thing in the mail that says, we are going to accept your FOIA or we deny it for some reason. Well, when I filed for the hair slide, for them to look for the hair slide, I gave them the exhibit number. It's a microscopic slide that has a exhibit marker on it. It's like QX25251 or whatever. I said, please look for this in your miscellaneous lost and found. And they said they would. I was surprised. They said, yeah, we'll do this. And when a FOIA is completed, you're supposed to get something in the mail saying, we found no responsive records, or here are your records. Here you go. They usually send it on a CD-ROM, or a CD disc or whatever. But I randomly checked online. There's also an online, like database or whatever, where you can check the status of your FOIA. And I've got, I don't know, 20 FOIAs out for Cooper. It's ridiculous. I check them every month. And I checked that one maybe last year at some point, and it just said closed. I never got anything about why it was closed. No letters in the mail. Just said closed. And that was after they had searched, or after they had said they would. So I don't know. I've never had that happen before. They just closed it. So part of me thinks that, I mean, my best, like my fantasy in my head is that they found the hair slide, and that's the DNA that they've been using recently. Because I know that they recently got McCoy's DNA just to run a check on it. They got it from Rick McCoy, his son. And so possibly they've got new DNA, and the hair would be where you get it from. So, and again, they don't have to tell us anything, right? This is still an open case, despite what the media said. This case is still open with the FBI. They did not close the case. Okay, they just said that to make people go away. So, yeah, maybe they found the hair slide, and that's they. I mean, again, they're not going to tell us that. They're not going to say. They're not going to go to the media and say we found DB Cooper's hair slide after losing it for 40 years. They're just going to no. They don't have to tell us a damn thing. So, or me, or certainly not me. Don't have to tell me anything. So maybe they found the hair slide. Okay, name your Mount Rushmore of Cooper suspects and Cooper researchers. Okay. Cooper suspects. Well, okay, so what's the metric on this? Is it their infamy? Or is it the ones that I like? What's the metric there? I guess I would say as far as infamy, it would be, as far as press goes, obviously McCoy, Ragstraw, Dwayne Weber, and I don't know, maybe Barb Dayton gets, or I would say Kenny Christensen, not Barb. Those are the ones as far as notoriety. I would say Kenny Christensen because of the Nat Geo special, the Skyjacker that got away, and also the book Into the Blast, Blevins' book. Obviously McCoy because he's McCoy. Ragstraw, God knows, we've got 2 documentaries on Ragstraw already out there. The grift is strong with Ragstraw. And who was the first one? And Dwayne. Yeah, Dwayne, because of Joe Weber. Dwayne's been in lots of documentaries and things. So those would be the most infamous Cooper suspects. The best, I don't know. I don't really know. That's unfair. I don't know. I mean, I like guys like, I think Skip Hall's interesting. Braden's interesting. Vordahl is interesting. Orville Lyons is very interesting. Roger Strom is interesting. No, but with respect to my friend Dave Feudman, I'm not a William J. Smith guy. All right. Let's see what else we got. Researchers. Obviously Bruce is going to be number 1. It's about Mount Rushmore of Cooper researchers. I would say Bruce. I would put Chris Brower on there. Mark Meltzer. And okay. I'll do this again. Okay. Mark is Mark's not so much a researcher as he is a godfather of the vortex. So, okay, I'm going to Bruce Smith, Georger, whose name's Jerry. He's a professor. So Bruce Smith, Georger. Who else did I say? I forget. I would say Flyjack. Certainly Flyjack. I don't know and Chris Brower. Yeah. So Chris Brower, Flyjack. Am I having a stroke? I don't know. Yeah. Bruce, Georger, Chris Brower, Flyjack. Those are my Mount Rushmore of Cooper researchers. Things that those 4 men unearthed, I would believe. Okay. And I don't think that they have any overt agenda, really. Okay. Okay. I think Dan Greider and Tom Colbert give good research. No, they don't. No, they give biased research. They ignore things that go against their suspect. They cherry pick, horribly cherry pick. Eric Eulis does this too. I mean, they have agendas and they cherry pick. All right. I mean, you're supposed to look at things as a whole. Okay. Okay, how many objects are in the custody of the FBI or the Washington State Historical Society that D.B. Cooper touched? I count 6. This is Al Cal. The tie, yeah. 2 parachutes, yes. 2 packing cards, and the boarding pass. Yeah. Well, you say 2 packing cards. No, we've only got 1 packing card. The other one is missing. The one that Cooper pulled from his parachute and put somewhere, it's missing. I mean, they found it, obviously. And I think what happened was whenever that parachute went back to Norman Hayden, whenever they went to have it repacked, and I think it was first repacked in like 82, I bet the rigger pulled out 2 packing cards. It's like finding 2 car registrations. I was like, what the hell is this? And knew which one was for this parachute. And the other one, which was Cooper's chute, he probably gave it to Norman. He probably handed it to Norman Hayden saying, hey, what the hell's this? And Hayden goes, oh, I don't know. Hayden wasn't thinking, or probably put it in a filing cabinet or threw it away, you know. So that's gone. So they have, let's see, what else? The 2 parachutes. Yeah. That's all I can think of. Yeah. The tie, the boarding pass, 2 parachutes, and 1 packing card. Things Cooper touched. Okay. What do you think about Bruce Smith saying that the Tina Bar money find had more small bits of money around the place? Might mean dredging happened in the area and money wasn't buried. No. Those small bits that were found, I'm quite certain, were the pieces of the money that were missing. So if you look at the money, you'll note that you'll see like the edges. I mean, most of the money looks like this. All right. And so you're missing probably 40%. I don't know if it's 40, maybe 30% maybe 25 or 30% of the actual of the bills are missing. Well, those are the shards, as Bruce calls them. That's what the little pieces were. And I believe that if I can find this, I think that, let me see. I want to say that that Tom K has photographs of these small pieces. Yeah, here we go. Yeah, actually, yeah. Let me, okay. Yeah, let me do this real quick, people. Bear with me for a second. Let me breathe anyway. I need to take a breath. The first time I met Bruce, Bruce told me, because I was talking so much, I was a chatterbox. Bruce goes, Ryan, take a breath. That's the first thing Bruce Smith ever told me. He's right. I should have taken a breath. Okay. Let me take a breath for a second. Okay. So here's a photograph that Tom K came up with from the of these small pieces that Bruce likes to mention a lot. Here we go. Yeah. So now there's lots of these. This is just a picture of a few of them, but you can see these little pieces down there. Down there. These are the fragments that Bruce is talking about, and what those are, again, those are the bits and pieces of the edges of the dollar bills that came off. Right. That's what those are. There again. See. I mean, look at, and there's some of those fragments there in that photograph. You can see there's the shards. So those things are going to be moved around a lot. And remember, something that I find really interesting that people don't know about. So the Fazios have cattle. They have a lot of cattle, and especially back then, they had a cattle ranch right next door to Tina Bar. The cattle were fenced off, but a few days before the money was found, the cattle got loose and were running up and down Tina Bar. And whenever you see the video of Slim Ingram, Brian's dad, talking about how it all went down, he goes, his son Brian bent down to smooth out an area for the fire pit for the wood to go on. Well, the reason they were smoothing out the sand was because the sand was pockmarked by cattle hooves. So the whole beach was pockmarked by cattle hooves. It's all uneven and lumpy. And so it's possible that the cattle running through there smushed maybe even, pushed the money down further, or maybe unearthed the money that was buried. Maybe it either pushed it down into the ground. Maybe the money was sitting at the top at the time. I don't know. And the cattle stepped on it and pushed it down or something. So there's a lot of cattle. I feel like that the cattle factor into Tina Barr money fine somehow. I really do. Don't know how, but something. Okay. Bruce was talking about a report that kids away down the river found corners of bills a few weeks earlier. So that is in the FBI files, and that was determined to be a hoax. That was not real. All right. What happens first? Tom K uses dinosaur DNA to make his own Jurassic Park, or we find Cooper and learn his whole story. Tom K, Jurassic Park. Yeah, I hate to. I mean, it's kind of sad, but I don't think this case gets solved. I think I will be dead or gray-haired and doing this at some point. Not gray-haired. At my rate, I'll be bald. I won't have gray hair. Look at my poor hair. You can mark time by my hair receding. Okay. Let's see. What else we have here? Let me look around. Come on, people. I'm filibustering here. I don't have a guess with me. I'm having to work on this. Let's see. Anybody? Not if you, Nicole says, not if you understand is a dreadful title. Do you think Cooper actually said this and Tina, Flo, Alice remembered it later, or do you think the director just made it up? I would like to think that it is something Cooper said, because that would really be crummy. If Tina is on the production crew, she's an advisor. I think that would rub me the wrong way if I am the historical advisor and they just, because think about this. In movies, a lot of times the title of a movie is in the script of a movie, like, all the pretty horses or something. And there might be a line that says, yes, and then all the pretty horses did this, So I bet not if you understand is in the movie, right? So I don't know. It's a good question, but it could be something that she remembered. But I've seems like Tina would have mentioned that before. It would be a cool title if Tina said that, but there's no indication. Yeah, no indication that Cooper said that. Okay. Let's see. Other questions. Okay. No fuzz, no fuss. Yeah. I don't know. The no fuss, no fuzz debate's interesting. I don't know. I feel like that no fuzz makes a lot more sense in the context of when he said that. So this no fuzz, no, oh God, I'm still have my money there. Sorry. The no fuzz, no fuss debate. So Cooper gets Flo to write down his demands. I want parachutes, money, yada yada. And she looks at him and she goes, "Is that all?" He goes, "No fuss," or "no fuzz." We're not sure, right? Because we've got Anderson. There's an interview with Harold Anderson where he smiles and says, "No fuzz." That's what he remembered. Now, the Flo's 302 says no fuss. But remember, 302s are not audio recorded. And the 302s that we have are transcriptions of handwritten notes. I wish I could show y'all what a 302 note looks like. I've got a couple examples in the FBI files of what these notes look like. They're just like jibber jabber. So I could see no fuzz, a Z looking like an S. So maybe it was typed as no fuss. So no fuzz makes more sense. Like, hey, is there anything else you want? Yeah, no fuzz, like no cops, right? That makes more sense to me than no fuss. Like, what does fuss mean anyway? I mean, I know what fuss means, but no fuzz sounds more appropriate in that context. What boxes did Orville check? Well, I would say, let's see. Yeah, Orville is pretty high on my list. He's number 3. Let's see, what does Orville not have? Why is Orville even? So Orville did not get a point for being a pilot. Orville does not get a point for having Boeing 727 or Boeing knowledge. And he didn't get any. I give bonus points if you can have type article connections. So he didn't get a bonus point for that. But yeah, he's lacking. He's not a pilot. So the reason, like, see, Braden and Hall are higher than Lyons because both Ted Braden and Skip Hall had Boeing 727 or Boeing knowledge because they both worked around, or at least could have arguably had experience, or maybe. But no, Lyons just doesn't have. He wasn't a pilot, to my knowledge. And he didn't have any specific Boeing knowledge. But I like Lyons. I mean, look at this guy. I mean, talk about looking like D.B. Cooper. I mean, look at his college photo here. Look at that. That long head, thick lip, little bitty, weird little nose. I like Lyons a lot. I do. Okay. Let's get the show on the road. Jonathan says, I thought I remembered you saying that you do think it will be solved. What changed your mind? You know, maybe it just depends on my season of life. Maybe I'm just more pessimistic about it right now. But I've said this a million times, I think. But when I really started to like get to know McNally really well, Martin McNally's existence should scare the ever-living shit out of everybody in the vortex, because you could literally, if I said this before, I know I'm a broken record, but if Mac had gotten away, and if Mac did not get a concussion when he landed, and if Mac had not had an accomplice, he lost his money, so it wouldn't have been successful. But I think he gets away with that. And if Mac had gotten away with it, we'd be the Robert Wilson. It'd be Wilson Con or something. You know, I mean, Mac's hijacking it's like Cooper is a 9th grade creative writing project in high school, and Mac's hijacking is War and Peace or something. I mean, it is like not even remotely, is way more fascinating. I mean, just like leaps and bounds. But if Robert Wilson, which was his alias, had escaped, you could live a million lifetimes and research that case, and you would never come across the culprit being Martin Joseph McNally, unemployed gas station worker from Wyandotte, Michigan. Never. So that was quite sobering to realize that. Go, oh shit. There are a lot of people who could have been Cooper. And we focus on a few names, but I don't know. So yeah, that's tough. Who is Murdoch, Uncle Jim? Murdoch ignored the problem with the Facebook Treehouse Club. Who are we talking about? Murdoch? I don't know any Murdochs. Anyway, okay. Nuke says, look at the difference in McNally and Cooper hijacking. I agree. Maybe. I mean, yeah. I think Cooper had. We could narrow it down because Cooper seemed to have parachute training. So, how many people had parachute training in 1971? I don't know, a million something. I mean, I don't know how many men served in the Army Air Corps or the Air Force between 1942 and 65 or whatever, but lots. Cooper was calm and professional. Less gas station. Mac was calm. Mac didn't freak out. Mac got angry once when it was appropriate to get angry, when he was about to take off and a Cadillac crashed into his 727. He got angry. But in Mac fashion, he quickly recovered and started making jokes with the pilots about it. He goes, "That guy's crazier than I am." And they all laughed with the pilots. I mean, so who is Murdoch, Uncle Jim? Who do you keep talking about, Murdoch? Jesus. Okay. More likely, in my opinion, Cooper is someone in our known suspect pool. Where'd it go? Did it disappear? There. Cooper is someone in our known suspect pool or someone completely unknown. Unknown. I mean, just mathematically, the odds of, considering that Cooper could have been so many people, the odds are, yeah, I would say 99%. It's not somebody we know. If McNally had not been caught, what evidence would we have today to track him down? Good question. They did recover some fingerprints of Mac's that they used against him. Poor Mac, when he like Cooper, was smart enough to recover his ransom notes and things. And he, before he jumped, went to the bottom of the stairs, tore up the ransom note, and threw it out the back of the plane. But because of the jet stream, it blew back in his face. So he had shards of his ransom note blown into the aircraft. He thought he gathered up all the bits and pieces, but he'd missed some of them. And some had his fingerprints on it. So we would have his fingerprints, and Mac was post. So for those who don't know, in 1973 there was a fire at the St. Louis Military Records that destroyed literally 20 million service records. Basically, if you were in the Army or the Air Force, Army and Air Force, Army Air Force from 1917, from World War I until like 1960 or something, the records were held there, and they were destroyed in a fire. So we're missing a lot of. It's kind of sad. World War II records. If you go on Ancestry.com or Fold3, if your relative was in the Navy or the Marines, you can find their information online. Army or Air Force, nope. So, and that goes for fingerprints too. But McNally was after 1960 when he was in the Air Force. He joined in 61, I think. Or no. Wait. Yeah, Mac joined in 61. I think Mac was in the military from 61 to 65, maybe. So his fingerprints would be on record. Could that 1970? Oh yeah. So I mean, Mac's fingerprints could have been run in a database or something by now, and maybe they could have found them. Could that 1973 fire be tied to the JFK shooting? I don't know. I doubt it. Fires happen. Let's see. Okay. Cooper was an Iceman. He was calm. Superficially, he was calm. I'm sure he was nervous. But like I said, McNally, this may be a distinction we have to think about. Of the hijackers of the copycats who behaved themselves, not many. A lot of them were really nervous and fidgety and sweating. And the only two I can think of, Heinemann was calm a little bit, but he seemed to be aggressive other times. I would say the two calmest ones are Cooper and Mack. And Mack was a criminal. Mack was a felon at the time already. Mack was used to committing crimes. So that's, and also Mack says he has no fear. Mack says he has no fear gene in his body. Mack says he doesn't know what fear is. And his relatives have told me, yeah, when he was a kid, he's just not afraid of anything. And I believe him, but maybe Cooper was calm because he was a criminal and he was used to putting people in these situations. So he wasn't like McCoy, for example. There's no evidence McCoy had ever committed a crime of any magnitude before his hijacking. And I think he didn't like, McCoy was a nice guy. I mean, said about a guy who skyjacked a plane, but McCoy had PTSD really badly. McCoy was a good guy, essentially, to a point. He was always shoveling neighbors' snow without them asking out of their yards. He was just a nice dude. He invited a guy over to his house for Thanksgiving because the student had no. It's actually his alibi for Cooper hijacking. He had a guy over on Thanksgiving morning who was maybe from the Philippines, exchange student at BYU who had no family. So McCoy said, "Hey, why don't you come and have Thanksgiving with my family?" Nice guy. Sweating bullets. His makeup was just dripping off his face. He was sweating. So there's something that Grider has to explain, right? How is McCoy cool and calm as Cooper? And then 4 months later, he's hyperventilating and sweating his makeup off. I mean, you'd think he'd be more calm the second time, right? No, McCoy's not Cooper. All right. How much of that persona is not a product of his mythos? Good point. I don't know. I mean, I like to think that Tina appreciated Cooper being decent to her. And I think Tina is the type who's religious and pleasant. And she's an empath. Clearly, she was a nun and has a degree in social work. She's an empathetic person. So I think Tina did not want to throw Cooper under the bus, as it were. So I think she's being nice to him a little bit. I think if you read between the lines a little bit, Cooper gets agitated a little more than we'd like to think he did. He gets really agitated several times. But the refueling he went into a rampage about the refueling. I was punching his hand in his fist, screaming, "They think I'm bluffing. I'll show them." And I mean, the pilots heard all this through the intercom. They're going, "Oh my God." And you can see their panic. This is why I'd love to hear those radio communications. We wouldn't hear Cooper, I don't think, but we would hear the pilots talking to the ground crew. And they were cussing at the ground crew because they were nervous that Cooper was about to blow up the plane because they could hear him screaming back there. And so I think he was a little more agitated than we think. Why don't we have more suspects of a Hispanic or Native American heritage? Good question. I spent a lot of being part Choctaw myself and having dealings with Native Americans as doing legal stuff with them around here. I looked into the Native American stuff a lot because look, the reservation, what are they? I'm brain farting. It's been 2 hours. The Yakima Native, the Yakima Indian Reservation is basically borders the drop zone a little bit, like 30 minutes away. Okay. And remember what time we're dealing with, right? This is 1971. This is at the height of the American Indian movement called AIM. Earlier that year, they had occupied Alcatraz for 3 months. They did an occupation of Mount Rushmore, I think maybe in October of 71, maybe a month before Cooper. Then the next year, they occupied Wounded Knee. and for months. And there was a shootout. I think they killed some federal agents. So these guys meant business. They were not joking around. And Native Americans had a higher proportion of special forces operatives than any other demographic group during World War II, Korea, and Vietnam. So, yeah, possibly. But yeah, I would like there to be, I wish there were more Hispanic suspects. In fact, I don't know of any Native American suspects. I mean, we have Skip Hall is the closest thing we've got. And, Skip Hall went around pretending to be an Hispanic, Lorenzo Pasillo. So he looked Hispanic. That's why I like Skip Hall enough, is because he's a good suspect in a way, because Cooper had this mixed race looking thing going on, perhaps. And if you look at Skip Hall, he could pass as a Native American in some pictures, right? I don't know if I have that picture of Hall, but yeah, Skip certainly could be Native American looking if you looked at him a certain way. Okay. William J. Smith is Hungarian, a little dark. Yes, sure. Absolutely. Cooper could have been Greek. The guy who died a week after the hijacking was of Greek ethnicity, I believe. Certainly dark skinned. Cooper could have been Italian. Who knows? Okay. Let's see. What else we're going to talk about? Yeah, no suspects are Latino. What if the tie were his dad's and the particles had nothing to do with Cooper? Well, very possibly. That's the thing. I mean, the problem is that, it's all we have. I mean, I don't like dismissing the tie because why not? I mean, does it hurt anything? I mean, I will not discount a suspect because they have no tie particle connections. Eric Eulis, some others might. I don't. I think it's very likely it was his tie, but may not have been. I can't say that for sure. Or I can't say that he didn't get it from a brother. I've got a couple of ties that belong. I have ties in my closet that are my brother's. Right? So it's possible that it was not his, but probably was his. And again, why not? It's as good as we've got. And Tom K, here's a CooperCon tease. Please come to CooperCon or buy our streaming video of it when that goes up. We are getting Macron. The people who did the testing on the tie many years ago have done retesting on it with exponentially better technology. So we may get some really unique tie particles that really can be traced to a specific company, right? More so than the titanium antimony. So, any chance the tie was Don Cooper's? It's funny. As we say, so for those who don't know, Milton Vordahl worked for TieMet in Las Vegas around in 1971. And TieMet was a titanium company, and they laid off all of their employees. 280 titanium workers were laid off in like August 28th of 71. And the guy who was the supervisor who fired these people was named Don Cooper. So you have 280 fired titanium workers who were fired by a guy named Don Cooper, possibly an homage to that dude, right? What about Shale Sonnen's Native American suspect? Well, he didn't give a name. I don't know. You know what I'm going to do? Maybe I can email Shale Sonnen and say, look, I'm the DB Cooper Sleuth. By God, you better talk to me. Why don't you come on my podcast? Maybe I'll have Shale Sonnen on here. Maybe I'll say, hey, whisper the guy's name in my ear. It's possible. Shale, I don't know. Could be. Let's see. What are my thoughts on Cooper dying and his overall views? Okay, so Larry, good a friend of mine. I like Larry. I don't think Cooper died. I just don't think so. I think parachutes are meant to open, and if parachute opened up, something would have been found. The Tina Bar money. How do you explain? Look, if Cooper dies and lands, he's not landing in the river. We cannot. But no one can really put Cooper near the river, in my opinion. I don't buy it. It could possibly. I'm not going to say no, but it just don't think so. The pilots are pretty sure they were not in Portland at the time. And at 10,000 feet, Portland and Vancouver is just a big old blob of light. So they weren't yet at the blob of light. Okay. And remember, the river goes through the blob of light because it splits Vancouver and Portland. So I don't think Cooper lands in the river. So let's say if Cooper lands and dies on the ground somewhere in Battleground or Ariel, wherever, how does the money get to Tina Bar? I mean, you have to invent some scenario where, like that movie, A Simple Plan, right? Where the people come across, I forget what the plot is in Simple Plan exactly. They come across a crashed plane that has stolen money on it, or maybe a wrecked car or something where they had a car crash, bank robbers or something. I forget what the plot is like that. But I mean, you have to have some scenario where somebody finds the money and then gets it to Tina Bar. I don't know. Tina Bar, who knows? But I will say this, Tina Bar is not, I don't think Cooper was there that night. Why do I not give credit to Carr? Well, Larry, look, I'm not giving him credit. I just disagree with his theory. I mean, look, Larry's writing the foreword to my book. I mean, me and Larry are buddies, but Chris Cunningham is probably my best friend in the world, and I vehemently disagree with his take on what happened to Cooper. So, oh my God, Uncle Jim again with Murdoch. Who in the world is Murdoch? I'm going to block you, Jim, unless you tell me. Okay, so it says I have 72 viewers currently. I know I've got more than that. So need some more questions if I'm going to keep talking, or maybe I should wrap it up. I don't know. Let's see. Maybe I'll read something from my book. How about that? Maybe I'll read something interesting from my book. I'll do a book reading. Somebody said that I should do the audio book for my book. And I don't know what somebody asked me when the book's, I don't know. It's done. I'm basically done with it now. Finally, it's taken over a year, but I'm done with it. I need to get publishers, and Larry needs to write his forward, and there's some other things going on. And it'll probably, and I'm told it takes 6 months to a year for a book to be released if you're using a publishing house, which I'm doing. So it'll be a while, but let me see. Maybe there's something interesting passage I can read. Yeah, I don't know. Maybe I won't read nothing. Maybe I won't read anything. Maybe I will. I don't know. Do y'all want me to read something? I don't know. All right. Let's see. A member of the A team. Do I think Cooper was Canadian? Are there 302s that they looked into Canada? Yeah, they looked into Canadian suspects. The problem with that is that they did not have jurisdiction, right? The FBI would have had to, a lot of red tape for the FBI to go to Canada and talk to people. Different country, even though we are buddies with Canada, but they are still a different country. So there are a lot of laws about interviewing people in different countries and law enforcement and things like this. Okay. Yes, thank you. You're one of the few in true crime who primarily cite references. Yes, the book has over 400 citations. I'll have you know, a bit excessive, but everything is cited. I don't want to just make up things, or people think I'm making up something. Okay, let's see. Yeah, okay, a little story time. Well, you can say goodnight if you don't want a story time. Let's see. What's a good passage? All right. We'll start here. The hijacker was expecting Schaffner to return and kept looking down the aisle for her. Each time he failed to spot her, he turned and looked over his shoulder at Mucklow, who was doing her best to avoid looking directly at the man, lest her gaze antagonize him in some way. But his anxiety was rising, and she could feel it. With the seat next to the hijacker now open, Mucklow instinctively knew she had a role to play in keeping the man calm. She left her seat and sat down beside him, declaring, quote, "Flo must have gotten lost, so I think I'll sit here for a while." She later explained, quote, "I was there for the hijacker to kind of keep him feeling safe, reassured, comfortable, and not detonating that bomb," end quote. Just as the hijacker had done with Schaffner, he showed his latest hostage the contents of his briefcase. Glancing down, Mucklow saw what looked like dynamite sticks, a large battery, and several wires. As the daughter of an electrician, she immediately recognized the complexity of its design, even noticing that certain wires had been stripped. Upon seeing the bomb, her first instinct was to run away, quote, "But on a 727, there's no place to run," end quote. Thoughts of massive depressurization then filled her head, and she began to think about what her role would be if the bomb went off. If a hole was blown in the aircraft, the oxygen masks would fall, and she would need to assist the passengers in securing their masks. Then the dreadful reality of her predicament suddenly struck the young stewardess. She was sitting right next to the bomb. This imagined scenario where she provided aid to the passengers was just a delusion. She felt sick. The barf bag placed in the seat pocket in front of her came into focus. It looked enticing, but she refrained from grabbing it. Unable to run away, and with her sudden wave of nausea quickly subsiding, she decided to pray. She looked forward to the cockpit. Seated ahead of her were three dozen passengers, all blissfully unaware of the danger they were in. She prayed for them and their safety. Next, she prayed for her family and for her 5 crewmates. As a natural empath, Mucklow's final prayers were for the hijacker himself. Without knowing his life history or what had brought him to that moment, she did her best not to judge him for the crime he was committing against her and the others aboard that aircraft. Let's see. The man burned through Raleigh cigarettes with efficiency, extinguishing one and then immediately lighting up another. With his right hand stuck in the briefcase, Mucklow was forced to light most of his cigarettes for him. The two briefly discussed smoking habits, and she informed her chain-smoking hijacker that she had recently quit herself. Despite learning this about his hostage, he nevertheless asked her if she wanted one of his Raleighs. With her nerves already teetering on the edge, she took him up on the offer. Circling endlessly over Seattle, Mucklow and the hijacker passed the time by engaging in small talk. During these conversations, she occasionally tried to pry personal information from the mysterious stranger sitting to her right. At one point, he asked her where she was from. She explained that she was originally from Pennsylvania, but was currently living in Minnesota, the headquarters of Northwest Airlines. Minnesota was, quote, "nice country," he told her. She sensed an opportunity to gather some intel and asked him where he came from. Her investigative inquiries were too obvious, and he bluntly told her to, quote, "knock it off." Rebuffed, Mucklow looked for something else to talk about. She decided upon a topic that seemed particularly relevant given the current awkward situation. He listened as she explained that stewardesses were instructed to warn passengers against buying cigars and rum if they were ever hijacked to Cuba. Such purchases would be a waste of money, as they were sure to be confiscated by U.S. Customs once they returned to the States. The hijacker laughed and said they weren't going to Cuba, but were instead going to a, quote, "pleasant place." Staying on topic, Mucklow asked him why he chose a Northwest plane to hijack. He laughed yet again, amused that she thought her employer was being picked on. Quote, "It's not because I have a grudge against your airlines, just because I have a grudge." He said he had only chosen her flight because it suited his time, place, and purposes. There. So, yeah, there we go. Story time. There we go. Okay. Go Cubbies. Yes, go Cubbies. DB Cooper Sleuth, what streaming software are you using? I am using, what is it? StreamYard, it's called. Okay. Zodiac community needs me badly. Hells to the no. Hell no. Not me doing the Zodiac. Am I going to try to get Tina Mucklow to attend? Yes, we're trying to get we're trying to get as many people as we can to attend. The problem is a lot of them are just not Mucklow, but guys like Radicek, it's 84. Harold Anderson is maybe 88. This was 10 years ago. We'd have a lot better chance at getting those guys there. I just don't know if it's in the bag. But Tina, Flo, and Alice, possibly, maybe one day. I think Tina, I don't know. I think Tina's, I could see somebody like Tina being afraid of people or just, I mean, she'd be treated like the Pope walking in there. You know, I mean, she'd be the Virgin Mary. And maybe, oh my God, it's Tina Mucklow. I mean, so maybe she didn't want that attention. Okay. Go Reds. Let's see. All right. Here's a good one. I'll continue so some of you like the reading, so we'll do story time again. Hours went by and they still circled Seattle. Mucklow began to feel that she was letting the passengers down by ignoring them. She understood that the best thing she could do for the passengers was to placate the hijacker, but she was nevertheless upset that she wasn't being allowed to attend to their needs. She and Schaffner had been assigned to work in the tourist section for that flight, but Schaffner was busy in the cockpit. With Mucklow also occupied, she could only watch as Alice Hancock managed the entire passenger cabin by herself. Thankfully, despite the aircraft being able to accommodate 100 passengers, there were only 36 passengers aboard that day, including the hijacker. Another benefit of having so few passengers was that it limited the amount of foot traffic that occurred up and down the aisles. Occasionally, a passenger would come back to the rear to use one of the two lavatories, which were situated directly behind the last row on either side of the aircraft. Whenever a passenger started down the aisle toward the rear, Mucklow noted that the hijacker would reach back into his briefcase. She was anxious about how he might react if a passenger flagged her down or directly approached her for assistance. Her concern was that such an incident could disrupt the business-as-usual facade that she had carefully maintained. Introducing any unpredictable elements into this delicate situation had to be avoided at all costs. Fortunately, throughout the entire 3-hour flight, only once did Mucklow have to deal with a passenger directly approaching her and the hijacker. It was well into their holding pattern over Seattle when she noticed a passenger in a cowboy hat walking down the aisle in her direction. It was evident he wasn't heading to the lavatory, but was heading to her as a target. She sprang from her seat and intercepted him around row 14. The man was bored, and he asked the young stewardess if she could find him a sports magazine. The magazines were stored in a cubbyhole directly above and behind the hijacker's head. So the man's request put her in a precarious spot, but she nevertheless agreed to look for one. The passenger followed her back and took up an awkward position about an arm's length away from the hijacker. Fortunately, the man never seemed to notice the hijacker, and instead focused his attention solely on Mucklow, complaining about the flight delay as she searched. Unable to find any sports magazine, she finally appeased him with a copy of the New Yorker, and he returned to his seat. This interaction upset the hijacker. When Mucklow returned to her seat, he leaned over and said, "If that is a sky marshal, I don't want any more of that." She reassured him that there were no sky marshals on this flight, but he still seemed more uneasy than he had previously. Believing that the crew should be informed of the hijacker's mood swing, she decided to report this incident to the cockpit. Up front, the flight crew received this call and were not liking the sound of it. The passengers were a variable they could not account for. What if one of them got too close to the hijacker? Radicek had seen a few passengers board in Montana who looked like tough guys. A couple of them were even wearing cowboy hats. Montanans were independent types, and Radicek was afraid if they were somehow made aware of the hijacking that they might not pass on the chance to be a hero. He thought this was especially true if these men had some liquid courage pumping through their veins. Radicek could hear a passenger, perhaps more than one, through the cockpit door getting a little rowdy in first class. Had to be some of the Montana dudes, he thought. They had been on the plane the longest and already had their ample share of the free drinks that came with a first-class ticket. Being uncertain how much longer they'd be circling above Seattle, the decision was made to cancel drink service throughout the passenger cabin. Also, a phony announcement was made that there was turbulence in the area and that all passengers were to remain in their seats with their seatbelts fastened. With nightfall fast approaching, Mucklow mentioned to the hijacker that the crew had started their day in Minneapolis over 8 hours earlier. She stated her concern that the pilots were likely growing fatigued. In response to her lament, he reached into his pocket and pulled out a bottle of benzodrine, a popular stimulant that had just been classified as an illegal narcotic that year. When he suggested that the pilots might want some of his pills, she quickly rejected the offer. Quote, "They wouldn't accept it," end quote, she stated. And he put the drugs back in his pocket. He nevertheless told her to call the cockpit with a new demand. He wanted meals to be brought aboard for the crew once they landed. Curiously, Mucklow noted that the hijacker wasn't wearing a watch and was forced to constantly nag her about the time. But now, as his 5 p.m. deadline approached without a resolution, his normally cool demeanor began to wear off. Perhaps to reemphasize the severity of his threat, he repeatedly told her, "I don't care what happens. I'm not going to be taken alive." So, okay, enough of my reading. Did they actually provide the passengers with free alcohol? With the first class ticket, you had complimentary alcohol. So yes, there was free alcohol for the first class people. The cowboy was not in first class. The cowboy was a coach passenger, by the way. Robert Cummings was his name. Tina strikes me as someone who would feel overwhelmed and embarrassed by being treated as a heroine. Absolutely. Yes, I think Tina is very demure. I don't think she would like that. Bill Manning says, Skip Hall, I suspect he had been to and did not like Cuba. Yes, he was imprisoned in Cuba, actually, for several months, and he had lived in Cuba for a while. In fact, Skip Hall was one of the revolutionaries with Castro and with Che Guevara, and he had a falling out with those guys once they became communist. And Skip Hall began teaching parachute training to, I think, Ecuadorian revolutionaries in Cuba under Castro's nose, and was caught. And instead of being shot, I guess he was lucked out because he was an American. They didn't want to shoot an American. Castro imprisoned him for 3 months. So yes, Skip Hall was very, very, very familiar with Cuba. No suspect was Canadian as far as I know. We have one that I know, Elise Seller, who is a bit of a hero for the dead camp. Lee Seller was a World War II bomber pilot for the Canadian Royal Air Force. Was a bit of a loser type. Had no real career. Was a good athlete. Was described as swarthy. He was 47 at the time. No, he might have been 48. The FBI actually said their estimate, to put a pin on it, the FBI in the 302s, they think Cooper was 48 years old, approximately. Seller went missing in 71, just abruptly went missing. He was living maybe in Seattle, around Seattle at the time. Left his kids. He was a single father. His wife, I think, he had 2 divorces, and one of his wife died of cancer. He was an overwhelmed single father of 2 teenagers, and just left them in the middle of the night. Never seen again. And Lee Seller looks, his pictures he looks very Coopery a little bit. He was a pilot, and there's other things that kind of connect him too. But if you think Cooper died, then there's no better suspect that I know of than Lee Seller. He scores pretty high on my chart too. Let me see if I've got maybe a photograph of Lee somewhere that I can pull up. Sorry, folks. If you're hanging with me, we're just hanging out. Sorry for taking a break from talking. Let's see. I'm trying to find a good Lee Seller photograph for you all. Let me type this in. Well, this isn't a great one, but there's a picture of Lee during World War II. But you'll note the skinny little nose. He's got the long face that you want for Cooper. But that's a photograph of Lee Seller, who went missing in 1971 around Seattle or Canada. But he's Canadian. He's from British Columbia, I believe. He was a Canadian. So he's your Canadian suspect, and he was a bomber pilot. And he goes missing in 71, never to be seen again. So that's Lee Seller. Okay. All right. Well, I guess I've gone on for 2.5 hours. In case anybody has any other final thoughts or questions, that's all. Okay, here we go. Well, did I hear you saying there were 36 passengers, including the hijacker? No, there are 36. Yeah, there's 36 passengers. There were 36 passengers, including Cooper. I don't know where 37. That number came from a double counting. The FBI double counted Scott McPherson twice. So Scott McPherson was counted twice, and so yeah, there were 36. So if you look at the passengers, if you go to my website, you'll see the pictures of. I have pictures of all the passengers. I've identified them. Norjack.org. You'll see photographs of all the passengers getting off the plane. I've labeled their names. That was hard. That took me a while because we have video of the passengers getting off the plane. All of them. I was able to figure out who each of them were. That took a minute, but I got all of their identification, so I know who all the passengers are coming off the plane, what they look like. George Lebissoniere looks drunk. I think George Lebissoniere was the drunk on the plane. There was a famous drunk on the plane. I think that was George Lebissoniere, not the cowboy. People conflate the cowboy and the drunk together, but I think the cowboy and the drunk were different people, because I don't think Robert Cummings, who was traveling with his wife and teenage son, was a drunk. He just looks pissed, which is fitting. I'm coming off the plane. He looks pretty pissed. But George Lebissoniere was a lawyer with several DUIs to his name. And I think that he was our drunk. Okay. Who was the military guy on the plane? That was Dennis Mickelson. He was in the Air Force. He was Jeffrey Gray. Hard to find information. Gray says that he was on leave from Vietnam. I don't think so. I think he was stationed at the base near Missoula. I forget what that base is called near Montana. Maybe I think it's near Missoula. There's an Air Force base up there, but I think he was stationed there, and he was visiting his family in Seattle. So then Dennis Mickelson was in the Air Force. He was 23 or so. What's the most comprehensive Cooper book? Well, mine, but it's not out yet. I guess I would say Bruce Smith's D.B. Cooper and the FBI is probably the best comprehensive if you're into suspects and all that type of stuff. Dan Cooper comic. Do I have any of those? I do. I'll show it to you, actually. So here's my Dan Cooper comic. I've got one. I like it because he's got a target on his head there, right there. So there's the back of it. You can see, and let's see. There we go. This is like kindergarten, right? Les choisis tu astucer l'hydration que Randy était bard. I don't read French. So, but here's the thing though. You don't have to read French to look at this. I mean, that's one thing about the Dan Cooper stuff is, let's just say you're a serviceman in Vietnam or somewhere. I mean, remember, Vietnam is French Indochina. So as late as the 50s, I think. So the French were there in the 50s. And the French are all over the place. Belgium and, wherever. This is a Belgian comic, I think, actually. But let's see if this one has him doing a parachute jump. I think it's going to. Let's see. Well, his plane just got shot down, so I assume he bailed out. Does he skydive? Does Cooper skydive in this one? Yeah, he bails out, but they don't show him bailing out. That's too bad. Oh, well. So no skydiving Cooper in this one that I can see. No. But anyway, Dan Cooper. I got this one specifically because I liked the visual, right? Dan Cooper. It just looks cool. Okay. Have I or anyone else seen the book Cooper by Jens Eisel? It's a novel in German. No, I don't know about that. Is that like a fictional book? Cipher? I don't know. When is Tina's movie coming out? They've not even, I think they did some pre-production on it. There's one photograph from the set allegedly of Tina. I know who the actress is who plays Tina. She looks good. Do not like who they cast as Florence Schaffner, though. I think they cast a woman who's like 45 years old, and that pisses me off. No offense to her. I'm glad she has a job, but it seems ridiculous. Okay. I still feel like Dan Cooper has to have something to do with the comic book. If they wanted to implicate Don Cooper, they would have just said Don. So why not Daniel? Yeah, I agree. They could have just said Don Cooper. Why not? Yes, it's fiction. I'm learning German. Well, I actually have a major in German. I actually majored in history in German. So, ja, das ist gut. All right. Tina being played by Julia Roberts. Well, no, about that. All right. Folk it. All right. Oh, he doesn't pan up. I don't pan up. I do pan up. So yeah, I would say books, Cooper. Gosh, how do I have 75 viewers still? My God, I've been going 3 hours. Don't you folks get tired talking about Cooper? I have stuff in the audience. My God. Let's see. Well, I'll keep reading. How about this? One more reading. Okay. I'll pick up where I left off. Finally, at 5 o'clock, after yet another call to the cockpit for an update, she had to nervously admit that all of his ransom items had yet to arrive. She said they were still waiting on the front chutes to get there. This news agitated the hijacker because earlier he had been told that the parachutes were all coming from nearby McCord Air Force Base. He complained that McCord was only 20 minutes from the airport and that it shouldn't be taking that long for those parachutes to get there. Earlier in the flight, Mucklow remembered the hijacker at one point was staring quietly out the window when he suddenly blurted out, "Looks like Tacoma down there." His ability to recognize Tacoma from the air and his proximate knowledge of where McCord was located led Mucklow to conclude that he was likely familiar with the area. With his 5 p.m. deadline lapsed, his mood changed, and Mucklow felt him growing slightly hostile. He began hissing out phrases like, "They think I'm bluffing. I'll show them." Though she had kept him calm until then, his mounting frustration was beginning to frighten her. Mercifully, the rising tension was diffused when Captain Scott called back a few minutes later and stated that the front chutes had arrived and that they were beginning their descent momentarily. Let's see. There. All right. There. Okay, story time's over. All right. Very good. Well, thank you. It says, I started this evening with 75 viewers and I've lost a grand total of 2. It fluctuates. And I don't know how accurate this view count is anyway. I often wonder why people even want to listen to me. It's bizarre. I don't know, folks. Let's have a session here. I'm just me. I'm just a guy. It's weird that people want to listen to me talk about this crap. Anyway, okay. Well, I guess I will. I'll wrap it up. Yes. Okay, Uncle Jim. I will look up Marvin Jack Murdoch, and I will see about that. Let me see if there's anything else that I want to convey to you people before I go. These things always last 3 hours. I try to keep these things as 3 hours, and I do it for you. I do it for you people. Look, my voice is shot, but I know that I like to do chores, cleaning the house or driving around, listening to podcasts. I think that's why Joe Rogan's so popular, is because his shows go for 3 hours. You know, we just like to, our ADD generation, we just like to hear things going on. I'm trying to think if there's anything else that would be interesting enough to read. So here's an example from my book about the FBI investigation that goes on for 100 pages or whatever. But I just clicked on, I just opened a random page in this thing. One notable idea for generating leads came from Special Agent Ron Nichols, who had replaced Agent Don Steele as the case agent in the summer of 1972. He proposed that the call logs from all of the payphones within the area of the drop zone be checked for calls that occurred on the night of the hijacking and also during the following morning. Because the hijacker lacked the ability to accurately control where he was going to land after bailing out, it was thought that one way he may have extricated himself was by stashing the money upon landing and then making his way to the nearest payphone to inform a waiting accomplice of his location. Inspecting the call logs for these phones revealed that 14 calls had been made during that specific time frame. Agents then took those numbers and investigated who they belonged to and why they had been called that night. Though it was certainly a clever avenue of investigation, Nichols' inquiry into the payphones ended without any new leads being obtained. Okay. Anything else that's interesting? This is how one of the chapters ends. I'll just end it this way. As the 5-year anniversary of the hijacking approached, the FBI had spent countless man-hours investigating hundreds of possible suspects. They had spent a fortune in conducting ground searches throughout the dense terrain of Cooper's suspected drop zone, and thousands of tips had been sorted and processed. Yet, despite their best efforts, case agents in 1976 had to confront the tough reality that all of it had been for naught. Julius Mattson, the special agent in charge of the Portland office, vocalized this frustration, telling a reporter, "We know nothing more about him today than we did at 11 p.m. Wednesday, November 24th, 1971. I just wish that we had something to go on. We don't have a damn thing, just a great big zero." So yeah, the FBI were pissed too. They had nothing. I mean, they said nothing. So, all right. When am I going to build a full-size mannequin? Well, let's see. Little Coop. Can I get him to focus on Little Coop? My camera? Is my camera going to focus on Little Coop? Yeah, maybe a little bit. He still needs his shoes. I got brown shoes for him that look great, but they don't fit the doll or whatever you want to call him. Action figure. I'm a man, damn it. It's an action figure, not a doll. Okay. Yes, Mini Pup. We are all still agreed it was McCoy. That's how we're going to end the show. It was McCoy, people. It was McCoy. Okay. All right, guys. Well, that's it. My voice is gone. I will talk to you guys again soon. Y'all have a great night. Cypher, auf Wiedersehen. Tschüss, as they say in German. Au revoir, as we say in French. And we'll see y'all later, as we say in the South. Good night to everybody, especially our friends in England. And I will talk to you guys again soon. Good night. Bye.